Good morning and welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting. This is 9 a.m. Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, citizen input for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone online with a raised hand feature? Okay, next commissioner announcements. Today's Wearing Pink Day, acknowledging breast cancer awareness, research, supporting American Cancer Society is a big leader in this, initiatives, funding research and aiding patients and promoting screening and risk reduction education. So Breast Cancer Awareness Day. There was a photo upstairs with the assessors and the finance and administration. So there'll be maybe a post today on that also. Anything else, commissioner announcements?
According to the head of Cedars-Sinai's breast cancer research this morning, the numbers are actually getting better for breast cancer. So that's really good to acknowledge. I used to actually buy breast cancer stamps. And you'll notice I don't think you can buy them anymore. And then I'm wondering, where is that money actually going? But, you know, I've had a lot of friends who have had breast cancer young, and tragically, one of my good friends survived 20 years. But, you know, if you, the numbers are actually increasing now for people surviving over 5 years. So that's good to know. Catching it early, taking care of yourself, screening. And on a lighter note, I'd like to acknowledge that tomorrow is the start of the Columbia River Circuit Finals at our fairgrounds in Redmond. It's the professional rodeo people from Oregon, Washington, and Northern Idaho will be here competing the top 12. So if you don't have any plans for the weekend, I think the weather is supposed to get better, but it is tomorrow night, Friday, and Saturday night at our fairgrounds. And then my most favorite thing at the rodeo is the Rascal Rodeo. And that's Saturday morning. I believe it starts with the kids about 10. You need to check in with your kids about after 9, but it is an amazing program that we help fund a bit, where kids that maybe have issues are able to touch a horse, ride a horse, do all kinds of amazing things. And some of these children, it really makes a huge difference when they get on that horse and the connections are there. So anyway, it's called the Rascal Rodeo. If you can come by, they always love to have volunteers. It's check-in time, I believe it's 9 a.m. Saturday morning at the rodeo grounds. So indoors. So please, yeah, it's just incredible. And to see the love of the parents and the people that are bringing, some of them are adult, so that participate, but a lot of kids. So it's one of my very favorite things this weekend.
Great, thank you. Commissioner?
I guess the only thing I'd add on Breast Cancer Awareness Month is I think the key message we're supposed to be getting out to people is get your exams, take preventive measures.
There you go. Thank you very much. So at this time, consent agenda. Couple items on here.
Move.
Second, I don't want to pull it, but I would like to see a little bit more detailed information on item number 4 after this meeting at some point. Adding another $300,000 to essentially adding another $350,000 to this contract. I understand why we need to analyze an additional site for the the landfill siting process, but I'd just be interested to see the breakdown of those costs that add up to $350,000.
Great. So that's just for follow-up information.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I totally concur with that. It's, it seems like we're down to one company that's bidding, and I feel like healthy competition could have been better.
Yeah, and I'd be interested in that information also. So we'll just take a look at that after, but it is on the consent agenda for today, approving that contract addendum. So with a motion and a second, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes. So that was consent agenda. At this time, action items number 10, acceptance of a grant, funds for behavioral health deflection program. Team up here. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Price, Business Manager at the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. I'm joined by Captain Schultz. He oversees our Corrections Division at the Sheriff's Office. And Jessica Vanderpool, one of our Senior Management Analysts, who's been very fundamental in getting us to where we are administratively and fiscally to be able to execute on this program for behavioral health deflection. Just a couple of months ago, we came before you to seek your approval to go after phase 1 of the behavioral health deflection grant. And we are here today to seek your approval to accept that grant. After your approval, we went back and submitted, and we received the earmarked total that we had requested or that we were expecting. And so moving forward, maybe just a brief bit of background, more for the record, I think you're all aware, but this is a program that has been set up by the state, and then it's funded through the Oregon CJC for organizations that do set up to use these funds to divert or deflect individuals with substance abuse or behavioral health disorders away from the criminal justice system and into treatment facilities, community-based. And so the earmarked funds that we have been identified to receive go partially to support us internally, some FTE that support this program, as well as 2 partner organizations that we work with here locally to be able to continue that program. So that's the quick background, and happy to open up for any questions or comments you have.
Thoughts?
I'd just like to say that I'm really glad that the state is recognizing the effective and successful model we're implementing here in Deschutes County and providing these funds. Wish they were more, but in these tight budget times, you do with what you can with what you got.
Well, I'll acknowledge we were at a graduation here in town about 2 weeks ago. So about 10 people graduated from this program. So it was really exciting to see people that were proud of their accomplishments, going through a process, being able to graduate with a lot of support around them. So it all starts on the street, at the diversion, and then the support that can be given also. So it's exciting to see these dollars come.
So was that the first graduation ceremony?
It was the second.
Second. So how many graduated in the first one? Do you remember?
There was about 10 as well. So overall, and remember, many of these folks that come through our program, the goal is to get them shelter, number one, get them back integrated with their families, and then work. And many of them can't make the graduation, so we have to do a little mini, because they're working. So that's the sign of a successful program. If we're trying to work around their work schedule to make sure they feel appreciated, that they're doing all this effort to change their behavior.
Yep. And we saw the family support there at that graduation. As I say, not everybody was there, but that's good that some of them were out working. So there you go.
It's great, at events like that to hear some details from DCSO staff, from Best Care, from Ideal Options staff, kind of to hear from them about basically how they work their magic, and how they help these folks who are, very vulnerable to relapse, very vulnerable to failing out of the deflection program, how they help them walk the line and get to the goal. It's really inspiring.
This afternoon, we're actually having a meeting with the judges and the Family Drug Court, which unfortunately, I believe, has been eliminated. Does that program, though, provide something a little different, or would you say they're comparable? Because that program just seems so great to keep people with a lot of help.
Yeah, and that was a highly intensive program for individuals with maybe more acute issues, where the courts and the DA was integral parts in a very successful program. But unfortunately, I don't know the exact reasons why it kind of has moved through, but I think what we have in Deschutes County, the judges understand this issue, and they're always working with the DA's office and their attorneys to see what path we go through. Even in deflection, the key is to get them before they come into custody, but we don't stop there. Yeah, and Neil Marchington, our program coordinator, he scours our intake bookings that day to see if somebody could use help. And then we work with the attorneys, we work with the judges to see if we can get them help on the outside. The number one thing we do in the jail, and Deschutes County is very lucky to have this.
You.
Well, even before I got there, is the care and custody of the individuals. And if there's not one little, if all we're doing is bringing people in and kicking them out, there's none of that community care within our agency. This is one of the programs that we can do to say, there might be a little something we can help you with. So we're very lucky to have that, not only in the jail, but partnerships with this program is huge. We have a great partnership with the DA, Steve Gunnell, and his employees. We have a great partnership with the Ideal Option and Best Care. We have a great partnership with the Shepherd's House and Turning Points. And that's growing into the community to families. So the key is to have a great relationship with families. When their loved one comes into their custody, they know that we care. And that's what this program's about.
Thank you.
I mean, another way to think about the interface with the circuit court judges is the more successful we are with deflection, the more manageable their caseloads are. Because as we know, even though we had 2 judges added a couple of years ago, they are maxed out, and there's a lot of, for example, there's a lot of civil litigation that is backlogged for many months or years. So the more we can, the more people we can deflect before they have to go to trial or court, the better.
You're absolutely right, Commissioner. It's really about changing behavior and letting people know that you can change in a time that they're so vulnerable and everybody needs that helping hand. And it doesn't take much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of document number 2025-989, accepting $311,908 in grant funds awarded by the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission for the Behavioral Health Deflection Program.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Congratulations. Full funding.
Item number 11, allocation of funds to support homeless initiatives. So we've got our memo associated with this, a couple different line items we're talking about moving around.
Good morning, Commissioners. We'll do quick introductions. I'm Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator.
I'm Cam Sparks, the Budget and Financial Planning Manager, and Christy Bollinger, Deschutes County Property Management.
And one moment, we have acknowledged a request to speak on this subject, so that'll be kind of up to us as a board. We probably all talked to him on the phone recently, so we'll get to that after we take a step or two into this.
So good morning, Commissioners. We're here today to talk about allocated funds to support homeless initiatives that the county is currently involved in. One thing we'd like to do is just kind of reorientate one of the funds that actively supports our homeless initiatives, which is the Project Development Fund, which is Fund 090. So I just want to kind of talk a little bit about that first. So how this fund works is a portion of lease income that comes into the county. It all depends on what lease it is, goes into this fund, and also proceeds from sales of real property, not including particularly in this org, sales from Lapine Industrial goes into a different org, so excluding that from this conversation. And then also any proceeds from property sold that was acquired through tax foreclosure, that would not go into Fund 090. Currently, we have funds budgeted in Fund 090 to cover the expenses associated with the TSSA and also for the BSL cleanup, for example. So that's part of the reason why we're here today, is to ask for some reallocation. Let's see here. And I think that's what I'm covering at this point, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to Kim, and then she's going to dive in more onto the ARPA request.
Yeah, I just, as a reminder,
Before we move on, Christy, can I just ask you to describe? So those are the uses of 090 funds that we're going to discuss today. But can you tell us more broadly about all of the things that property management uses Fund 090 for?
Sure. So if we, for example, we're going to be, we've closed or limited some property use to day use only. So that would require signage. So that would come out of that fund. Cleanups on properties, like if we get illegal dumping, that would come out of there. Mostly right now, it's supporting homeless initiatives.
Right.
But anything that's going to maybe a study, like if the board wanted a study on a property for some reason, like the campground at Fort Thompson, that whole study, that fund paid for a portion of that. If we need to do a property line adjustment or any sort of land use application, those fees would come out of there. If it was for what we consider an asset property, it would come out of there. So those are just some examples.
So the kinds of things that help us to prepare to use, sell, or lease land.
Correct.
Okay.
That's a good characterization.
Thank you.
okay, so today, as you'll see in your agenda packet, staff is requesting to use reallocated ARPA funds along with $150,000 from the Economic Development Fund to put towards some of these expenditures that are currently budgeted in Fund 090. So on that matrix, you can see that there's about 1.7 million in total budgeted. And well, there's 145,000 of that managed camped overage that is not budgeted. But these are the budgeted / projected costs for fiscal year 26. Of that, about 842,000 we have identified funding for, which includes contributions from the City of Redmond, City of Bend, as well as some recategorized ARPA funds that you have already approved the use of. And so the 874,000 is kind of what we're calling the funding gap that we don't necessarily have funding for unless it comes out of Fund 090. And so today we're requesting the 567,963 of reallocated ARPA to be allocated towards those costs. And just as a reminder, I think you all are aware, but I want to point out that 567,000 is the last remaining funds that were earmarked for the county's response to houselessness. And then the other request is that 150,000 coming from the Economic Development Fund, which we've had conversations with EDCO, and they are going to anticipate using about 95,000 of that. And the fund has about 370,000. So anything that isn't allocated to either EDCO or if this was approved would be transferred to the general fund, and we would ultimately close out that fund in this fiscal year. And then the 156,000 is what would be remaining if these two allocations were approved that Fund 090 would need to pay for in this fiscal year. But then, of course, there's also estimated costs for the upcoming 2 fiscal years as well.
So tell me, it says on the notes that we've already approved 511,000 to run the relocated ARPA funds for East Redmond.
Yes.
We've already approved that, and that money we don't have to worry about today. It's already,
That's already been allocated.
okay. So can you like show me when we actually approve that? I mean, what is it, 250,000 for 1 year, 150,000 for another year?
It was 281,000 for the development. That was approved on July 21st. 500,000 for 2 years of operation, so roughly $250,000 a year. That was also on July 21st.
Okay.
And then there was another estimate of 11,000 for security patrols that was included in that amount. So that is the total of 792,000, but that's spread across multiple fiscal years.
Okay. So it was 721 of this year.
Yes, I believe so. Let me just double check.
If I can elaborate on Cam's point, the 500,000, I'll just say $500,000 for the camp operations. I'll take out the 11,000 for security. The 500,000 is in an IGA that the board approved. It was a 2-to-1 vote. The language in the IGA with the city of Redmond says the county will make good faith efforts to budget up to $250,000 per year for not less than 2 years for managed camp operational costs. So that's the language in the IGA.
Okay, so apparently Redmond had a vote last night and they split it 3-3. And I did talk to Keith Witkowski because we do have an overage over the original, what is it, 145,000 from Taylor Northwest bid. So there's a funding gap there, 145,000. And it was 3-3. Mayor Fitch was gone. And I talked to Keith this morning and he said, you know what? We need to meet together. We have a meeting set up for November 3rd to discuss it in person so that we can be on the same side because, you know, I got burned before voting for something that we didn't get the other side and we had to pick up both sides of that 900,000 for the Bethlehem Inn. So honestly, I personally feel like after my investment meeting yesterday, the fact that we have a federal shutdown, we're talking about $874,119 today. I would really love for this meeting to come back after our November 3rd meeting with Redmond to really know where we can go. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. Heard back from a couple of people that voted no on the split. So.
And commissioners, I'd just like to add, we do have Jason Neff with the city, from the city's manager's office here, if you would.
Right.
Any questions?
Keith told me that he would be here. Thank you, Jason. But it's almost $1 million we're talking about. And definitely, I don't want to pick up the entire 145,000 overage. That I want to acknowledge that Taylor Northwest came in with an excellent bid. It was what, 324,000 less than our engineer's estimate. So I'm not knocking their bid. I really appreciate what their bid was, but I just feel like I think that split is really important for this project. Because we've been working together for how long now on the project, Christy? Our managed camp meetings, I mean, we've had them for
Since
over a year.
probably last winter.
Mhm.
Since shortly after this current city council was seated. I would kind of work off of that thought and say I do think we should probably table item 12, the next item, the award of the contract to Taylor Northwest, but I don't see any harm in in keeping our half of the of the overage on the cost of this contract with Taylor Northwest, just kind of holding on to that, moving forward with these current allocations, and then if later on we can't get to an agreement with the city of Redmond, then we can pull the plug on the thing and go back out for bid or whatever we have to do to get it within budget, within the originally scoped budget, plus what we're willing to spend. But I definitely wouldn't propose that we pick up the entire 140,000 if Redmond is not there either. I think that should definitely be split. But again, I don't think that there's any harm in holding the money for today in the way that it's allocated to see what happens when we have a chance to speak with the Redmond City Council.
So that would be $72,559.50, half of it.
And if I may, I was hoping that we could still potentially discuss item number 12, if the board would be supportive of that, just in turn.
Discuss it, but maybe not award it today.
Well, it's an intent to award, so we could still go through the appeal period, the 7 days, we could still go through the process, prepare the contract and not execute it. That way that if the city and the county do come to terms on November 11th or November 3rd, then we could move forward quickly. So that would be my recommendation.
So we could approve this notice of intent to award contingent on getting to agreement with the city of Redmond.
Yeah, like if the board's will is not to proceed after the appeal period, then we don't proceed.
Okay.
So.
That sounds good. Or not to jump ahead, but
Well, it's all together. So
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what we're dealing with today.
So starting with next year's fiscal year budget, this $900,000 number, what's the vision or the plan, or do we have any resources for that? Or is that just our estimated cost? Would that be coming out of general fund or
That would come out of Fund 090. So
the
090,
whole thing
yeah.
next year?
Was
It's 250,000 that's been allocated from the already approved reallocated ARPA dollars.
so
As a starting point.
900,000 minus 250 is what our vision is for next year. And can I ask what the balance is in 090 right now?
Cam, do you have that? Andy?
I know it's around 4 million. I can look the exact number.
So that means it's an additional 650,000. So what's our balance?
But that's for all asset properties, all operations of
Right.
county.
Yeah, I mean, I want to understand what the balance is, but I also want to ask, could circle back with Christy. So we talked about what all the things are that we might use 090 for, and I wanted to ask for kind of a professional opinion on what an appropriate reserve, or kind of what should our balance, what kind of a balance should we be trying to maintain in that fund?
That's a great question. When I first started, the board contributed $1 million a year from the general fund, and that stopped about 3 or 4 years ago. And so this fund we've been able to maintain it in the last couple of years, I think around 4 million, which I think is a pretty solid number. But if we continue to use 090 to address and, maintain our homeless initiatives, that fund will deplete much faster than any sort of proceeds from sales and also lease income. It's not going to sustain. So if we're able to keep 4 million in there, that's fantastic. But I understand that there's lots of competing priorities.
So the exact dollar amount is $4,079,909.
And Commissioners, I just want to mention, so Christy, we have about 630 properties in our inventory, something of that nature. It fluctuates almost by the day. And I'm just reiterating this point of how critical it is that we do have a healthy reserve in that, because this also helps fund any county expansion, any county property purchase. This is, it may sound like a lot, but it's not, given the size of the organization, the growing community, what we continue to need resources to address community needs, space needs for departments, et cetera. This is a critical fund for the county.
And just real quickly, about 50% of those properties are tax foreclosed. So that doesn't affect Fund 090, which is a good thing, but still,
Yeah.
to your point, there's roughly 300 properties that we consider asset property, and this fund helps maintain those.
Cam, could you repeat that number? 4,000,007?
$4,079,909. And just to add also that, I mean, Christy mentioned it earlier, that there is lease revenue that comes into this fund, but it's only about $188,000 a year. So this fund doesn't have an ongoing revenue source to replenish those funds.
And, but historically, we were putting general fund dollars above our yearly requirements into 090.
Correct.
So was there, 4 million is our balance for the last couple of years. Historically, was the balance higher or?
I think Cam could probably answer that better than me. I feel like last year was the first year that we hit the $4 million threshold, I believe.
Yeah, it looks like last budget year we had about 2.7 million. I'd have to go back and look and see if it was ever higher than that in the past. I don't know that off the top of my head.
So even though we were putting in healthy chunks from the general fund, we were doing a lot of things that consume those funds as well.
Yeah. And then also last year we sold 67 Greenwood. So we realized that sales proceeds on that. So that went into that fund. So that's what helped get it over the 4 million.
So how much were those proceeds, Christy? Do you remember?
739,000 after commissions were paid to the broker.
What about the building that little house that we bought over here that actually got burned down by a homeless person? Did those funds, I think, didn't we get 400,000 back from that? Did that go into that account?
That went into that fund. Yes.
Okay, did we buy it out of that account too, though?
Sorry.
Did we purchase it out of that account also?
Well, it was the purchase. So yes, it was paid out of that account. So we
Okay, and then
didn't
the
sell it.
funds, the
Yeah.
reimbursement for insurance came back.
Yes, insurance, exactly.
So our ability to move on kind of strategic properties is, as they come available, is contingent on this fund balance as well.
Correct.
Can we rewind and talk about the economic development dollars as well? So, Cam, could you repeat those numbers for me? What's remaining? What did EDCO want? And then we're talking about 150 of the remainder.
Yeah, so we have approximately 369,000 in that fund. In conversations with EDCO, they indicated that they would use about 95,000 of those funds. And then we're requesting the 150,000 to go towards the DSL land transfer cost of 272,000. And so whatever is remaining, we would close out the fund and transfer that to the general fund.
And are we in our budgeting for this fiscal year, or kind of our early projections for next fiscal year, are we counting on that remainder going into the general fund, or?
No, it hasn't really been factored into any of the forecast at this point.
Okay. So, for example, if I suggested we cover $200,000 of the DSL land exchange instead of 150,000 out of those economic development funds, we're not, I'm not talking about taking away that money from somewhere else, where it's already been promised.
No, not at this time.
That economic development fund, I think, generally started before my time, but a recessionary period, all of a sudden there was foreclosed properties coming, bank foreclosures, back taxes were being paid, and there was like a bump in revenue. This is the last big recession, 2008-9 time period. So it's the idea to create that fund to help create jobs, help create launch businesses that are starting maybe $2,000 per job created, last money in. And it had a run, but it's just been real quiet for a long time now. So it has been subsidized by general fund in the past too. So it's appropriate to put it right back there if that's where it goes.
And commissioners, I'll just share. I coordinated with John Stark, Economic Development for Central Oregon's executive director, on this allocation of this $150,000. And he was supportive, understanding that the end result will be that the DSL land transfer will result in 137 acres being included in the City of Redmond's industrial land inventory for business growth. So we're factoring it in here as for cleanup and relocations and things of that nature. That's why you're seeing it here. But we do see the end result being addressed directly supportive of economic development.
Yeah.
Good
That-
connection.
that, developing that 137 acres into light industrial or, spec building, whatever the purposes are. I mean, that is absolutely an economic development investment. And so, I think it's entirely appropriate to consider using those economic development funds for, for advancing the DSL land exchange.
The interesting thing is that Commissioner Chang and I attended the Little Kids program at OSU Cascade yesterday, an amazing program that's now being implemented, but they are short of people to work and take, to be the workers in the program. And then I heard this story out of Redmond, JTS, a shavings company that's been here forever, ships all over the country. They are missing now drivers, people driving trucks in order to deliver their shavings, and their inventory is stacking up on their grounds. So, we need more truck drivers. We need, our economic ability is still being challenged by the lack of workers. So I couldn't believe it when if you drive by, it's right on the way to COCC in Redmond, and you'll see they have a lot of filled pallets on the ground. So, where are those people that are working? And the childcare program actually was amazing. The really wonderful news was the company that gave them a bid 4 years ago to build the little kits, it was a modular unit, I believe 7 units that they brought in, honored their original bid and never raised it for the school. So in today's world, I need to find out the name of that company, because I do believe they need national recognition for really doing the right thing. So it all goes together. We are a desert, but our numbers did look better the other day. I believe we're up to 48% of childcare. And remember how many millions of dollars we put into that program a couple of years ago? So we're seeing the 3 to 5 year olds. There are more childcare spots now in Central Oregon than existed in 2021.
I was able to stop by the Little Kids right after everybody left. I just didn't get there till after 5 o'clock, but I toured it also right at the end of it.
Yeah. The modular, what you can do with
Yeah.
modular construction in this day and age is pretty amazing.
Best view over the campus now too, in the back corner there.
Through the fence, yeah.
Yep.
But I'd also like to say, kind of in the grand scheme of economic development and what we need to be doing for our community at this point, we've talked about kind of the earlier thought process coming out of the recession. Let's make these forgivable loans and grant funds available as incentives for for employers to add employees or grow their businesses or relocate here, and that did have some purpose. And I do think that at this moment in time, what we're seeing is that one of the most important things we can do for economic development in our region is invest in our workforce. Try to make workers more available. Try to make it possible for people who are part of our workforce to live in our community. And so, there's the connections between housing insecurity and workforce availability are very real. And so, that is another reason for us to support and move forward with using these economic development dollars for projects that address housing insecurity in our community, because that has direct effects on workforce availability.
But I want to thank you for putting this spreadsheet together. I mean, it's a real nice, kind of snapshot of where we are and how we can get to where we need to go in the near future. So, I mean, it's really mature even to be able to have this conversation. So there is a request to speak about safe parking program. What's the will of the board here to hear from or bring that in as a topic? Because that would be a new line item basically for a funding request. So as I say, this is for us to discuss at this point in time. Multiple requests to speak.
I'm supportive of hearing hearing that public input.
Commissioner Dare.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So as I say, we've talked about it and then we're ready to take a little bit of input on this topic at this time. So we'll start with Mr. Rick Russell. And then following will be Chuck Hemingway. So it looks like you're really prepared. You have,
Should I?
yeah, and then you also have it available for presentation electronically. Is that what that is?
I do as well.
Amazing. Okay. Well, if it's available, we can put it up.
Yeah, and I have additional hard copies if anybody would like
So
some.
this is, yeah. One page. Oh, yeah, I mean, let's keep it 3 minutes. We're not in a big, deep conversation here, but please provide. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Yeah, Rick Russell, Executive Director of Mountain View Community Development. We operate safe parking both in Redmond and Bend. And just a quick reminder, that's 8 sites in Redmond for 38 spaces, 3 sites in Bend with a 4th coming online for 15 and then soon 20 spaces. Last year served 129 people. 41 of those were children. 45 went into permanent housing, another 10 to a positive destination, which means the people who went on to permanent housing or remained sheltered was 72% of the participants in the program last year. Most of those adults working. Number 1 employer is BaseX in Redmond. It's a very efficient form of shelter, about $15 a day. And it's a combination of funding from Pacific Source, private dollars and donors and grants, foundations, state SHAP dollars. But a major component of our funding this last year, the last couple of years, has been MAC funds allocated by the state. And this year, we did not receive any of those funds, largely due to the prioritization of those dollars. And so that leaves us with a gap. We are eligible for those funds again in July of next year. But it leaves us with an 8-month gap that we're trying to fill, and wanted to bring a request to the Board of Commissioners. The gap we have to fill after numerous cuts and leaving vacant positions open is $368,000. We believe that we have about $180,000 from multiple sources that we have sought commitments in just the last couple of weeks as we learned this news. But we are bringing a funding request. We have a gap of $188,000, $500 that's unfunded. We understand that those 090 funds for the county give the county great flexibility, but we are asking if you can help us bridge this gap. And really what this does is preserve keeping families in place and keeping them unhoused, which would be getting them rehoused, which is a critical step for being able to access those state funds in July. We have to be able to keep showing that we can rehouse people, or else we won't be eligible for those funds in July. And so we are asking for you to help us to preserve those sites, fill this gap, and we appreciate the flexibility with that, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. Well, I got 41 seconds left. I could filibuster as well if you'd like me to.
Rick, you talked about people, working people, and you mentioned BaseX. Can you repeat those numbers for me?
Yeah, so last year we served 129 people, 41 of those were children, so the others would be adults. At any given point, we typically see that about half of our households have a working member in the household. And in the early days, I would say the primary job, the most common job that people held was actually gas station attendant. But in the last couple of years, with the rise of BaseX and their hunger for labor, BaseX has been the number 1 employer of people in our program. And those are good jobs. They typically start at 22. They can quickly get to 24, 25 if they do swing shifts, night shifts, weekends, things like that. We've seen people actually get into market rate housing because of their employment with those types of jobs. And so when we find people who are not working, it's typically because they've aged out of the workforce. These are senior citizens. However, we do come across people who are underemployed or unemployed and ought to be employed. And then we absolutely work with them on resumes where job opportunities are. And then it's housing focused. But if employment is the reason that they're not able to get into housing, we're going to work on that. Our case managers are going to work on that.
And the amazing thing about BaseX is they just started in Sisters, and now the Sisters operation actually is the biggest economic boom of the company, which I find incredible.
Yeah, they do. They build amazing things. Their surgical room stuff and HVAC systems, and this really is critical for us because it's really preserving our capacity to operate. I do want to convey how serious this is. Our Bend sites are protected because there's investment from the city of Bend for those sites, but not Redmond, and all of our Redmond sites would be vulnerable to closure. And we're already beginning to consolidate. We've already stopped doing intakes with new folks and vehicles. We've already left, I think, 3.5 positions unfilled. It's critical that we fill this gap, or we're not just talking about closing 1 or 2 sites. It's very serious for us to fill this gap.
And can you remind us how many spaces, safe parking spaces, are there within your Redmond program at this point?
There are 38 spaces, and I believe that 10 of those are micro shelters and 28 of those are vehicle spaces. Those micro shelters are just beginning to come online and have been very successful. In the last 2 weeks, we've gotten 45 applications on our website for people coming into the program. Part of that's because we're expanding in Bend and we weren't there previously. But we're seeing a lot of people who would like to get out of a car or a tent or something like that and into one of those units. One of the examples that I think is best is our Fuel Safe site, which is up in the industrial area on 17th Street, right there where there's been a lot of unauthorized camping. And that's been a fantastic partnership. The owner, Bill Hare, is very pleased. We're coming up on 1 year of operating. He has 2 RVs in his parking lot and 1 micro shelter. And the result of that is that because of the time, place, manner ordinances, that means he does not have unauthorized camping happening within 500 feet of his business, which was not true a year ago. And so it's been a win-win. It's been a win for that business, a win for our organization, as well as the people who have been there. Bill actually at one point ended up hiring one of the people who were in the program, unbeknownst to us. We had no idea that happened, to work for his business. That would be one example of how efficiently and well this program works.
Thank you.
What's the specific ask of the county for this gap right now?
The gap is $188,500, and we would that's the gap we have. I would say anything helps.
So a subset of that number is that whole number or anything, okay?
Yes.
Is it safe? So for the spreadsheet we have in front of us is adding a line item to the numbers here.
Okay, and Rick's aware that I did ask a private party, anonymous private party, perhaps to, they will be back by the 28th, I believe, the end of the month. So for, if they could possibly do 100,000. So don't know their answer yet, but there is some wiggle room. You've got funding in order to not go the whole 8 months, but you can go, what, half the times?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right. So we filled with a combination of multiple partners and private, some of whom are private. I would call out Fuse, Hayden Homes, Westside Church. There's some of the immediate people who stepped up. So the gap was much bigger. It was closer to $400,000. And we've got commitments to about half of that, but and we're working it.
What about Pacific Source? What are they telling you?
We have a contract with Pacific Source, and that they are a regular part of our income. The key with the Pacific Source, and this is really critical, is that we can invoice for the services that we provide. However, our staff have to be trained and certified at certain levels. And so if I lose my staff, it takes me 6 months to retrain a new person in order to begin to invoice for that. So again, it's another critical reason why protecting our peer support specialists and our case managers allows us to generate revenue on that Pacific Source contract. But if I lose them, I essentially lose the next 6 months worth of Pacific Source invoicing. But they are a critical part. In the next year, we expect that will be something like $180,000 of income for this program.
So 3 items here. Coordinated Homeless Response Office. Supposedly, we're creating this coordinated effort in Central Oregon. We've got elected officials at the table coordinating how we're going to do this. But now you're an individual effort coming to us asking to open up our checkbook once again. Obviously, it's a great mission and you're doing a very effective job at this. But what's going on with our Homeless Response Office? So this is a conversation for us. Also, the MAC funds. Governor said, hey, we have an executive order. This is high priority. So then we had this group of people get around the table that worked around the Board of Commissioners and said, well, how are we going to distribute this money? And that was money that you received. So once again, we didn't make these decisions at this board, at this table, but you're coming to us asking us to open up our checkbook. And then also the opportunity for program fees, which you and I have spoke about in the past. You know, there's going to be a 60-40, 70-30, 80-20 over, you know, some overhead to even implement that. But these are people getting, you know, sites for free with support and able to get jobs, some of them. So as I say, it's just such a unfocused effort by all the efforts that are going on right now. You know, I want to be impactful. We want to turn the corner on this, but it just, you know, for you to come in here with such organization and passion, but these other variables all around it is just very frustrating as an elected official, because obviously we got the focus now. We're going to hear this. Oh, we get the emails. You got to do this. You're supposed to fix this. You go fix that. How many people are leading and who's following and how are we going to coordinate this? So that's not for you specifically. That's my message to the world.
Thank you.
If I could try and kind of frame the whole thing up, I guess I would say we have learned in this region that shelter and transitional housing projects like safe parking are an incredibly effective way of slowing the growth of homelessness in our community, because, you know, issues like lack of low-income housing and you know, behavioral health issues are driving increases in homelessness. So the only thing that's holding the line for us is the shelter capacity, the supportive services, the transitional housing that we have. Safe parking has demonstrated itself to be an important piece of that, a critically important piece of that. So at the state level, you know, in terms of the Coordinated Homeless Response Office, the MAC, all those things, we saw the legislature recognize the importance of safe parking, of shelter, safe parking, transitional housing in this last legislative session. They said we are going to make safe parking an eligible project for state shelter funding. The problem is that you know, in this very constrained budget environment, they were not able to make enough funding available, total funding available at the state level for shelter and transitional housing to cover all of the things that are eligible and all the things that are good projects. So safe parking, because it was not recognized as an eligible shelter project 2 years ago, it at this moment isn't at the top of the priority list, because they said, well, fund the things that we fund the continuing projects first. So you get stuck in this weird position where you are now eligible, but if there's not enough money to cover the entire list, then you are put at the bottom of the priority, even though you've got an excellent project. So that's the role of the MAC. That's the role of the state program and the MAC. The Coordinated Homeless Response Office is, you know, playing a role in this, in you know, helping us plan, helping us highlight what the opportunities, the strategic opportunities are. But the Coordinated Homeless Response Office is only responsible at this point for deploying the funds that you know, that were associated with House Bill 4123. In the big picture, we need.
Maybe it should be called the Coordinated Response Office.
Maybe
then.
can I please finish? Okay. Because I don't want to, like, we don't need to spend that much time talking about the Coordinated Homeless Response Office. In the big picture, what we really need to do is get to a more sustainable funding model for this critically important shelter and transitional housing that we have. And so the discussion that we had at the joint meeting with the Bend City Council a few weeks ago, where the idea of, you know, asking people who have some income, have some either benefit payments or income from working, to pay something for the transitional housing or shelter that they're being provided, I think is a critical piece of getting to a more sustainable funding model. You know, understanding what the state of Oregon is going to send to us at the local level is a part of a more sustainable funding model, and ultimately in the long term, figuring out what we as local governments can put in, you know, on an annual basis is also part of a sustainable funding model. We are, you know, at this moment, I don't think we're anywhere near having an idea of where those funds are going to come from at the county level, but we do need to be thinking about that, and we do need to think about, you know, what our annual contribution is going to be, because the ARPA funds, as we see, are running out, and you know, project development can't absorb this for forever, but. That is the work that we need to do, instead of kind of trying to pick at all of the different, you know, nodes of people trying to work on this right now. What we need to do is, you know, kind of consolidate down to a couple of efforts, figure out what our sustainable funding model is, looking at all of those sources. You know, the federal money that comes through the continuum of care is also a piece of this. But you know, figuring out what our you know, total holistic funding base is, and figuring out how we can support what we need with those funds, it should be our challenge at this point. So I'd ask that we direct our thoughts constructively, rather than trying to just kind of pick at different pieces of this.
Who's leading, who's following?
That's exactly what I was just saying. Let's actually figure something out instead of jabbing and poking at people about the lack of coordination that we have.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, if there's a coordinated homeless office and it's supposed to just spend money,
It's
so they're not.
it's supposed to phase out. It will phase out
When they spend all the money that was received. As I say, and this is not, not you again, but I mean, we're in a bad spot here. You know, when we say we, who's we? Who's
those
leading?
funds were allocated for specific purposes to develop a strategic plan, which we have now with the Coordinated Homeless Response Office. It took a very long time to adopt it. I wasn't serving on the Coordinated Homeless Response Office board at that time. But we have a plan, and now the remaining funds are meant to help implement that plan.
Yeah,
So what questions do you have about that? I mean,
so I would like to see an advocacy organization who is coordinating this to come in with these kind of financial asks instead of one-offs. I mean, that's really an issue. At the last moment, we're trying to define a spreadsheet with a reasonable plan to get it through this fiscal year with an unknown plan for next fiscal year. And then somebody raises their hand and said, oh, we need more money. It's very critical and it's important right now. I understand it is, but it sure doesn't help, you know, that these things are popping up at the last minute. So. Good discussion. I mean,
what we're seeing is a reaction to this last cycle of legislative funding, you know, for state shelter, which didn't provide enough money to cover all of the needs. And that is the reason why we need to work towards a sustainable funding model where we have expectations from the federal government, from the state government, and from our local government. Yeah, and you know, it's pretty clear and simple what we need, you know, in terms of organization.
That's only your point of view. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, because how is government supposed to just keep coming up with money? Private industry creates dollars. People have, you know, wealth creation. They pay taxes, and we can't just keep coming up with more money from government. There's just, I mean, it doesn't work that way. So, as I say, that's very political. That's our different views of the world. But yeah, there's no magic for government to create more money. They just got to tax more people. So, and I don't know that yeah, I support
Well,
that politically.
like I said, one of the things that we really need to think about is in the cases where we are providing people with transitional housing and they do have some income
And there's,
to use, we should be tapping into, I'm not, if someone is unable to afford $1,200 a month for rent, I'm not saying we should charge them $900 a month, for a safe parking spot. But, if we could charge them 150 or $200 a month, then that would contribute to the sustainability of that funding, of that transitional housing model.
and then, yeah, safe parking unofficially has the opportunity for a program fee, but it's kind of a defined number and it's not a rental agreement per se.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I could quickly on that point, we have had discussion about a program fee. We're not opposed at all to a program fee. There are, excuse me, there are some models out there of that. Rogue Retreat comes to mind. I don't have the exact criteria in front of me, but there is I believe a state cap on what that can be. And I think it's $250 or $300 a month. And we can look further into that. Most immediately, the obstacle in front of us is that the city of Redmond and the city of Bend ordinance allowing safe parking does not allow a program fee. And so we would have to revisit that with each of those councils. And I would imagine that they're, willing to have that discussion. We just haven't raised it. And I'm glad to do that with our city councils. I know that there's a much larger conversation to be had here. I would just to reframe, there's eligibility criteria that is shifting for the next year. And if we can build a bridge to get to that, then we're in a good spot. But if we can't build a bridge to get to that, our view is our community is going to lose a really critical and efficient form of shelter. And so that's the core of our request.
Great, thank you. So yeah, let's get moving on here because we could do this.
Look,
all
Rick,
day.
how many are on the county land that we?
We have five spots there. We can go up to 6. We limit it to 5 because of the topography of the land and fire risk. And I do want to note, 2 of our people who were there a long time, we kind of had a site. It was kind of like old guys out there. It was like an old guy site. And we had 2 folks who were neighbors out there for a long time waiting on housing lists. And both of them have gotten into the housing the last 4 months. One of them just earlier this month. And it turns out now they're neighbors again in an affordable apartment complex. These guys were in their late 60s.
How many people actually work within your program? You're saying you're down to 8.5. How many?
Oh, how many employees do we have? Yeah, for core safe parking staff, it's about 6 or 7 people.
6 or 7 right now.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
after eliminating 3.5.
Yes, and that is because we try to maintain a 20-to-1 ratio for case management because that's the most effective number to really get people back into housing. Right now we are at 1 for everybody, and then our facility staff. But those are critical because they keep the site safe, clean, maintained, weeds down, fire risk. They set up the new sites, all of that. And then again, that's across both Bend and Redmond. And we have a contract with the city of Bend, so we're obligated to. And those sites are mostly funded. So this is mostly about preserving our Redmond, our core Redmond sites. Yeah.
One last question. The cost ratio is, I think, a really important thing to look at because we've seen conversions of existing buildings. We've seen construction of tiny houses or micro shelters for shelter and transitional housing. But with safe parking, essentially the person who comes with an RV or a vehicle is contributing a part of the cost, the overall capital costs for the project. So can you just remind us per person in safe parking, what are the total cost load for a year?
Yeah, $15 per person per day is what it costs to provide shelter. And most of that cost is the case management. Our overhead is very low, right? The sites we use are donated or leased, zero cost, churches, county property. It is that case management staff that works the housing plan to get them back, as well as keeps the site safe and orderly. it's going back 2 and 3 years, and I know Commissioner Dare walked the neighborhoods, and the greatest concern was safety and crime, and none of that has happened. None of that has come to fruition. Those fears have been allayed. And that is because of the system of staffing that really work the plan and keep it safe. And that's 80% of the cost is that.
And so, over the last few weeks, since I saw that National Vehicle Residency Coalition presentation, I've been emphasizing to people, this is one of the most cost-effective ways of providing people, safe shelter or transitional housing. And you kind of, in light of that, given the unique way that state shelter funding shook out this year, it's really unfortunate that there's not state funding available for the most cost-effective way of sheltering or transitional housing people. With that in mind, I would say we have an interest in addressing this funding gap, if for no other reason than we want to keep promoting, in a demonstration or pilot way, we want to keep promoting the most cost-effective way of sheltering or transitional housing people. So, I would make the argument for us to, draw a little bit more funding from those remaining economic development funds for the DSL land transfer effort. And, actually, you could argue that safe parking in Redmond also helps to support the DSL land transfer effort because,
Absolutely.
Not everybody, that there will be people who are ready to go somewhere else besides a managed camp. And it would be great if there were still sites available in safe parking in Redmond for them. So I'd make an argument for taking a little bit of to a little bit more economic development funds for the DSL work, thus leaving a little bit more in property development fund 090. And also I'd make an argument to use a little bit more of the reallocated ARPA funds for this purpose. And I guess if we're only doing 70K of the additional costs for that Taylor Northwest contract, that does leave a little bit of ARPA funds available. So you're kind of moving funds around in that way. I would recommend, or I would move to. Well, I don't know if we have a motion yet because we got this whole package of things.
Go ahead and propose
But my recommendation would be to get to, through those two reallocations to get to 75,000.
Commissioner Dare, any thoughts?
Right, because I've asked for 100,000 from our anonymous party, and they are really concerned with the children. And if you look at your numbers, the children that you provided for last year were 32%. So if you look at the whole funding deficit of the 388,000, that is actually 117,000. So asking for 100,000 from that party, and hopefully we will know by end of month, yay or nay. But they had said to me, they really do want to make a difference for children.
Thank you.
So I feel that's why I really want to wait till, what is it, November to determine this. I know you can make it through, till November. I believe in your program. You do really good work.
You've been there.
I've been there. I just feel like, okay, I want to know, will this wonderful person come up with 100,000 and then we can work on the other 88.5 if people in the community, more people in the community haven't stepped up by this time, because it is incredibly successful. And people do find their way, and you hire some really outstanding people. So that's why I'm hesitating to second that motion at this moment in time.
Yeah, so that was an idea, just proposal. So yeah, let's get moving on here. Blew out of our
Thank you.
agenda big time today. Thank you. So Chuck Hemingway, 3 minutes. I don't know that we're going to get into a big old half-hour conversation with you, but we'll see where this goes.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Chuck Hemingway. I live in Deschutes County. I'm a longtime advocate for unhoused persons here in the county. I'm on the boards of Central Oregon Villages and a new nonprofit called Central Oregon Homelessness Alliance, and also an active volunteer with the Shepherd's House Share Band program. But I'm not here representing any of those organizations. I'm here today in my personal capacity as a longtime observer of what local governments have done to address the issue of homelessness in our area. First, I appreciate very much what the county has done, even before the creation of the TSSA out in Juniper Ridge, in efforts to make the lives of those out there easier in so-called dirt world by providing portable toilets, hand washing stations, potable water, 30-foot trash containers, security controls, et cetera. These efforts have helped address and alleviate public health issues in a very positive way. I apologize because I only learned about this agenda item on Monday, and I'll be submitting some written comments, but it's not in the funding matrix with this agenda item on how to allocate the remaining funding. So I'm asking that you add an allocation for Mountain View Community Development to support its highly successful safe parking program and initiatives in Redmond and now Bend that are actively reducing homelessness numbers. MVCD has recently experienced severe funding losses that jeopardizes its ongoing programs. So I would ask that you allocate $180,500 toward their efforts. Also regarding large-scale safe parking areas, of that $425,000 that is for operations and cleanup of the TSSA, my ask is you consider that category very broadly to perhaps consider the possibility of creating a long-term visitation area out in sections 3 and 4 of the TSSA. That would be a large-scale safe parking program. And finally, you're going to be meeting with the city and county, with the city in January to discuss the future of the TSSA. My suggestion is that you create a contingency fund from the 090 account to set aside a portion of those funds to look at reallocating the TSSA after the end of 2026 to another location that might be mutually agreed upon by the city and county, such as the Gales property, which is land in the county and that will soon be the subject of a zoning request and would be another large-scale possibility for a large-scale safe parking program. Thank you.
Question for you. So you said you started another organization, Homeless Alliance?
Central Oregon Homelessness Alliance. We've got our board president here, Melissa, with us, and Lynn, another board member, and several people who are active with that organization.
So I'm going to point out the concept that when we start a new organization, that organization wants some resources to do a mission.
Not asking for that.
You don't expect any dollars.
Nope.
Okay, and as I say, I'm not critiquing that. I'm just pointing out that if there's a private entity that wanted to come in and say, oh, I want to invest and do some good work, if we're not coordinated as a community, as the Board of Commissioners, as elected officials on the front end of this thing, how am I supposed to guide somebody that says, I have a checkbook and I want to invest in the right thing for the right people? That's a value that we need to do for coordinating ourselves. So, yeah.
And we are the organization for you, Central Oregon Homelessness Alliance, because it's designed as a clearinghouse to bring together all those various entities that would like to supporting homelessness or that have funds available and don't know where to go to spend them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're designed to be is a clearinghouse for those funds, not asking for any money for ourselves, but just to bring together people who can talk about where that money could go.
So then it boils down to who's got the responsibility of really doing something. And if your mission is at odds with the mission of an elected board, all of a sudden you take a position saying, well, you need to do this out the TSSA, you need to do this on the east side, we need the federal government to do this. So I'm just pointing out, we're still in that same spot. Who's leading, who's following? As I say, I'm not even critiquing you for your efforts. I'm just pointing that it's so awkward sometimes.
Yeah, we want to be fully in support of what the county wants to do and what the other organizations want to do.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say it is not a weird or unusual thing for there to be multiple focus points, organizations who are all interested in the same thing, that are working separately, right? Like we have, housing. We have the Central Oregon Builders Association. We have the Central Oregon Association of Realtors, or I forget what their new name is now. We have individual affordable housing developers. We have individual builders. They are all advocating for more housing, and they're all doing it with their own voice. And sometimes they coordinate with each other, and sometimes they don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. Each organization has a unique perspective, and unique opportunities presented to it. So if you're saying that, if essentially you're saying, oh, well, they should all just speak with one voice and there should only be one person talking, I think that there'd be a lot of people from that network who are pro-housing people who disagreed with that. The magic, the art is actually kind of putting forward policy proposals that can get a bunch of those entities to all sign on, right? So that that's the magic. When you get the sign-on letter to the legislature that's asking, that's asking for X, that has, everybody and their grandmother all signed on, and you can say, look, all these entities who care about housing with different perspectives, they all support the same thing. So that is, I think, what we should be trying to strive for on homelessness response, not trying to mash and consolidate a whole bunch of organizations into one.
Thank you for critiquing my thought process.
You're welcome.
So,
Well, I can say something for the elephant in the room, the Jack Straw project. They got a $10 million tax credit, and yet they have 313 apartments there, and 3 of them are affordable. So how does our community feel about that feedback? I really think that's incredibly tragic. 3 out of 313, really.
So
And
thank you. very much
nobody's
for your
doing
testimony
anything.
here today. This has not been a public hearing, but we did hear from a few folks. So as I say, there's allocation of funds, a spreadsheet provided to us, a lot of logic in how we're moving our funds around. Obviously, this is this fiscal year. We're 3 months into a 12-month period to June 30th. And the next fiscal year is kind of an unknown also that we were making commitments for. There was a request for about $75,000, adding a line item in here. And it sounds like there's not support, but maybe near-term support if we discuss it.
I really think with the federal shutdown, with everything that's going on, that this meeting is, I'm glad we're discussing everything, but I feel it's incredibly premature. And I want to meet with Redmond on the 3rd and then have this discussion in, November 15th. But it's really, and then I want to also wait to see what happens with the request to help with the safe parking program, because it is incredibly effective. It is cost effective too. So that's the good news.
So if we leave that 145, 119 in here for development, for the funding gap, and I think that's in this proposed spreadsheet, half of that would be about the amount that Safe Parking's asking for not a decision today, but it would kind of be in our
Yes,
budget already.
72,559.50.
You support that, Commissioner? As in, it's just a line, it's the funds that we want Redmond to pick up. It's about the amount you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Decision not made today, but it'll be there.
I hear that, but I also think that it would be entirely appropriate to consider using more of these economic development funds that are returning to us towards the DSL land transfer to cover some of these costs, and leaving ourselves a little bit, ourselves a little bit of money in the ARPA pot.
I'd like to just add that the 30,000 that the board approved to help with the fencing project for COID, currently that would come out of Fund 090, and we have not budgeted for that. So you may want to consider potentially using ARPA for that, or the reallocated ARPA for that.
I mean, the fund with $4,079,000.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
It's not budgeted in there.
Right.
Right now, it would come out of there. I just wanted to put that on the table as potential option to use the reallocated ARPA for that.
So what would that look like for today then?
If we're only doing 70 of the 140 for the higher Taylor Northwest bid, then we would have some funds to put towards that 30K. Is that okay? Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and yeah, that would work for me.
So there, I guess we're getting down to it now. Are there any changes to the spreadsheet as presented? You know, you're talking about economic development funds as a different, slightly different allocation.
So then I guess what this would look like would be, so in this blue portion of this spreadsheet, we would have 70K for the Taylor Northwest contract, to get to the higher level. We could shift 30K county contribution to the COID fence project over to that ARPA column. That would still have, then we'd still have about 40K to put towards a potential investment in Redmond safe parking. And then I'd suggest we bump up the requested economic development funds for the DSL land transfer, bump that up to 200K and make some of that 50K we freed up available for the safe parking investment, and with the remainder, just reduce the amount of property development fund dollars allocated to the DSL land transfer. Did that make sense? For some revisions to this.
Yeah, I'm trying to do this in real time so I can see what this looks like, but correct me if I'm wrong, but you are recommending that you put 70,000 towards the East Redmond, the gap of the East Redmond managed camp using reallocated ARPA funds.
Instead of the 140 that's on this.
Right. And then shift 30,000 to cover that county contribution to the COID fence project.
Move that over to the ARPA column instead of the project
develop, yeah, the Fund 090.
Mhm.
And then
in the DSL land transfer cleanup reallocations column, make it
200,000.
200,000 in the economic development funds, reduce the property development allocation by 50,000 to balance that out. And then of that 50,000, we would use 35,000 to get us to 75K for that safe parking allocation.
Okay.
And then I guess there would be 15 left that we could just save for the project development fund.
Are you supportive of that, Commissioner?
I said, no, I want to wait till next month.
Yeah, well,
This would be
I'm just suggesting what this should look like when it comes back to us next month.
This is publishing a edit to this table, and I support publishing this. And then
Go
yeah,
ahead,
we're not.
you can second it.
Well, no, but then, as I say, the follow-on effort is the coordination with the City of Redmond to really expend some of those funds for the safe parking and the the development of that camp. Because I agree, both of those are kind of on the table right now. So I would support it, knowing that those two discussions need to be finalized.
Right.
So yeah, I'll second it for that purpose. So
But again,
wanna-
we're not voting on it right now. We're
we're finalizing.
just saying how we want this spreadsheet to look when it comes back to us.
Yeah,
The staff, when it comes back,
Mhm.
would interpret it.
that's fine. Yeah.
But then there's the problem. What if the private donor doesn't come through with 100,000? And then
But
just say parking is, you know, I feel like there's too many unknowns at this moment in time in order to actually, you know,
Well-
move this money around. I would like to have some more unknowns. And I feel like,
So we're
You know,
editing the
October fif-
spreadsheet today.
Yeah.
With support of the maybe two of us, or get to three.
right,
I mean,
And then, but we're not doing these
Do we need a
allocations.
motion?
Yeah, I'm trying to get clear.
Direct a revised spreadsheet for next time.
You do not. You're just
Okay.
providing direction to staff as
Direction.
long.
And
as you have
then,
a
and
majority.
then when, if this large donor doesn't come through, then we can consider a slightly higher allocation for safe parking if that's Commissioner Dare's interest. And, when we can, I guess, well, what I'm just trying to get us closer to the spreadsheet that we'll be looking at next month now. And that doesn't mean that we can't revise it more on the fly in a few weeks.
Because it's, just changing it around a little bit from the discussion we've had today.
The staff
So,
back
yeah, maybe we'll just leave it there then.
Redmond with the changes, but it's not approved. It's just direction to staff to bring back
Yep.
a spreadsheet based on the
Tentative, yeah, just tentative changes.
So let's proceed with the revisions discussed and call it good.
Got it.
Anything else for this agenda item then? Seeing none, thank you so much.
You.
There was our 20-minute discussion. Item number 12, notice of intent to award contract to Taylor Northwest. And it was stated previously that this is of an intent to award, basically defining the contractor with the bid, and then there'll be follow-on discussion with our partnership for Redmond.
We're moving the bureaucracy forward so that we're ready after the discussion with the city of Redmond.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would just recommend to the board actually not issuing a notice of intent
Okay.
to award under the OARs. If you're going to basically reject all of the offers due to funding issues, you should do that prior to the issuance of a notice of intent or at the latest, prior to the completion of the protest period, which would only get you to October 22nd, not to November 3rd, which is when you're meeting with the city of Redmond.
That the trade-off is, every week we postpone the award of this contract means that there's a week more of delay in starting construction and a week more of delay in completing our DSL land exchange. So,
is it possible to hear from Jason Neff? Is he still here?
He is.
Thank you, Jason, for coming.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
So, what's the question?
My question is,
Yeah.
when can the city of Redmond, when are they going to meet again? I know we're meeting together November 3rd, but okay, they had a meeting last night. When is their next meeting?
October 28th.
October 28th. Oh, it's due on the 22nd though, right? Okay. You guys can't call an emergency meeting? When is
I can
Mayor
check
Fitch coming
today.
back?
I don't know when the mayor will be back, but I can check today if they can meet sooner. They typically meet on a Tuesday, so there's the 21st, but I'd have to look into that.
Okay.
What's the window in this bidding process? As in, if we slip this a week or two or a month, is there an expiration on the bidding process?
Defer to Kim on that.
No, it's within a reasonable amount of time. I mean, I have to look at the RFP documents, but usually there's some wiggle room.
Yeah,
as far
so
as
as
the
I say,
issuance of the notice of intent.
Okay.
I mean, Taylor Northwest actually was down $324,000, I believe. So, I mean, they've definitely put their costs down. We're just surprised it's so much more than what we had thought.
Well, and I think, remember, I wasn't there, but I heard the discussion is about future operations also. It was mentioned last night.
Well, they want it to be something that can be usable in the future. If the managed camp goes away, then, okay, can it be an RV park? Who can utilize it? Because that's a lot of money to put into the ground and have it for a two-year use.
Yes. Yeah, so that's the operation of it was part of this dynamic, I think. The cost.
The
of
future.
operating. Yeah.
So,
I don't want to I'm not trying to out anybody, but can you tell me which counselors voted for and which voted against?
It was a public meeting, so it's just all out there.
I can tell you. No, go ahead.
Yeah, the meeting's up. You can watch it.
Yeah.
So you're not going to tell me.
Well, it was missing one, it was missing the mayor's vote. If he would have been there, it could have passed. It was 3-3. So, and I did hear from one of the commissioners that voted against it. And, you know, I do believe that when they realize, yes, we are going to go ahead with our share, so then they will be comfortable. But, you know, getting burned that one time, I really want to know that they're going to vote for it, yes, too. Because we need to go ahead with this. We've been, as Commissioner Chang said, we have been working on this project for months. It's a great opportunity to help with our DSL land exchange and actually help people, because we're not helping people by giving them a tent or a water bottle. They actually need help, and that's what this project is outlined to do.
Okay, well, so we're going to stand by, coordinate with City of Redmond, maybe a month even, or a couple of weeks, 3 weeks.
So if they do vote on this on the 28th, what is the fastest we can bring this back to proceed?
Well, we're having a joint meeting on the 3rd, so only.
Our
days
joint
later.
meeting is the 3rd.
Yeah, so that's a Tuesday, the 20th is a Tuesday, the 3rd is a what? Probably a Tuesday as well. Is that
But
right?
would
28th, 23rd?
would it make sense to tentatively schedule this for the 29th Wednesday so that we could gain ourselves 5 days in terms of
That would be good, wouldn't it?
You could, yes.
Yes. Okay, so we should do it.
Submit.
So you guys meet on the 28th, we'll meet on the 29th.
2 weeks?
Here we go.
Excellent.
It answered itself. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for making the drive.
Absolutely. Thank you.
At this time, item number 13, second reading, Farm and Forest housekeeping amendments.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Nicole Mardell, Senior Planner, Deschutes County CDD. Today, I'm here to present Ordinance 2025-016 for consideration of second reading by the Board. This ordinance would adopt housekeeping amendments related to the state's farm and forest modernization rulemaking process. First reading was conducted on October 1st, and if adopted, it would become effective approximately 90 days following adoption. I welcome any questions.
No questions. Kind of a stable package.
We've talked through this pretty thoroughly already. I'm ready to move approval of second reading of ordinance number 2025-016 by title only.
I'll second the motion.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
And I'll move adoption of ordinance.
Read it.
You don't want, oh, you have to read
This
the
is the
title.
second reading of ordinance number 2025-016, an ordinance amending Deschutes County Code Title 18 zoning ordinance relating to farm and forest modernization rulemaking.
Okay, so now I can make the motion,
Mhm.
move adoption of ordinance number 2025-016.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
At this time, item number 14. Now we're rolling again.
Don't,
Item number 4,
say-
I know, well, we'll see. Health Benefits Plan Renewal.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Trygve Balkin, Human Resources Analyst, primarily responsible for County Employee Benefits Plan.
I'm Susan DeJody, HR Director.
So we're here today. It's that time of year. It's our annual benefits renewal. As you're aware, our plan year is on the calendar year. So we are coming up to open enrollment for the 2026 plan year. We have recommendations for you, and we're hoping after we review those recommendations, we can get approval to renew our stop loss with a provider that presents the best financial option, move to approve to maintain Pacific Source as our third-party administrator for the 2026 plan year. Also move to approve the staff recommendations that I'll cover later on in the presentation. And then the big important one is approve county administrator to sign all of these documents for our renewal. Once we get approval from you, that our county administrator can then sign all of our renewal documents for us. So we have a summary, and I just want to briefly go through the summary and kind of summarize and then go through the recommendations that have come from staff and are supported by our Employee Benefits Advisory Committee.
Triggy, would you mind telling me who is on that Benefits Advisory Committee?
Sure. So it is a committee that there's policy for this committee. It's made up of union representation. So they're, depending on the size of the union, they have certain number of voting members. AFSCME obviously is the largest, so they have 4. We also have 5 seats that are leadership positions. So either directors, managers, supervisors. There's also a non-represented member on there. Then there is also a representative from COIC. And that's made up, that's the voting population. And then of course, our benefits consultant, they're non-voting members. They attend the meetings. Myself as the facilitator, I'm a non-voting member.
So how many voting members then?
I believe currently we have a total of, right now, we do have a couple vacancies, but I think we have 16 voting members.
Okay, because you said ASME has 4, there's leadership positions with 5, 1 from COIC, and then, so who are the others? Because that's 6.
The office, I could pull up the
Okay.
policy. I'd have to pull up the policy if you want me to take the time.
Well, I just, I know last time when I asked this question, it seemed like Eric and Whitney were all on this. And because it's it's called employees, I would love to see employees actually on this group instead of people that are management. I mean, that to me, the title said employees. So I just wondered, are there any employees on this group?
And we follow the policy. There is a county policy that administers the Employee Benefits Advisory Committee, and we follow that membership policy. So there are employees on.
Whitney's no longer on the committee. She hasn't been for a couple of years.
Okay.
We can provide a list of names. I mean, it's all,
It's public, isn't it?
we have all the information. Oh, yeah.
You have alternates as well. So if there is a specific union rep that is not available, the unions do. We leave it up to them to provide an alternate.
Okay, is Eric off of it now?
I believe Eric is on it because the risk manager is a specifically identified position on EBAC.
That's correct.
This is all from memory. I don't have it up in front of me either, but we can pull it up.
And if I could just ask, I mean, are we making distinctions between salaried and exempt employees? Because I can definitely see the importance of distinguishing between salaried and exempt employees when we're talking about union contracts and things like that. But I mean, managers, regular rank and file employees, everybody has access to the same benefits package, if I'm not mistaken, right?
So our benefits cover employees that either are part-time, which is 0.5 to 0.99 FTE, and it also covers regular full-time employees. We do have in those categories, there are 2 different types of employees. There are non-exempt, which are our hourly employees, and then we have our exempt employees.
Okay.
They're salaried employees, but there's no difference in benefits between those 2 classes. The only difference is the full-time employees are eligible for our standard health plan. Part-time are eligible for what we call the high deductible.
Got it. But between the non-exempt and the exempt employees, same benefits package.
Correct.
Okay.
So the 0.5 to the 0.99 get a higher deductible? That's what you're
Same cost to the employee. It's still the 95 for employee only and 116 for employee independence. The plans are identical. The only difference is the deductible on the plan. Instead of $500, it's a $2,500 deductible, and then the max out of pockets for the year, the annual max out of pocket is higher for the part-time high deductible plan. They do have the option to buy up. Part-time employees can buy up to the standard plan if they would like. But they are picking up a significant portion of the department charge if they decide to do that. I think we have 1 or 2 employees that are like at a 0.9, so they're picking up 10% of that department charge on top of their monthly contributions. For folks that are, say, 0.5, they would be responsible for half of that department charge, and it's really not
cost effective.
Not cost effective for them. I always tell them, just put that money in your pocket, and if you do have a medical situation where you need to use those dollars, then use it for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so now we'll just work through the
Okay.
plan.
I'll move forward. Okay, so every year we meet with our business or benefits consultant. We also meet with our TPA. They provide input on proposed changes. We also look at legislative requirements. We also look at other similar organizations and what they're doing. If there's new industry standards, new offerings, we benchmark against other compatible plans. We look at cost impacts, obviously, for any changes that we recommend. And then we also take into account, the healthcare needs of our employees and their dependents. We look at that. This year, due to continued increases associated with healthcare costs and the continued need to build our reserve, county leadership increased the department charges by 1% for the fiscal year 2026. So that 1% increase went into effect July 1. That is a significant decrease over last year. As you guys know, last year we had to increase it 15%, and then the next month, because we saw a lot of high dollar claims come in, another 15%. So I think we're back on track now where our claims have kind of stabilized and we're kind of back in the normal course of business.
I mean, when it's only 9% increase instead of 30?
Correct.
Like, okay.
Yeah, so we had a significant deficit in our fund balance. We have a policy that requires a certain amount in our fund should we need contingency funds. At the end of June of 2025, we were up to $11.8 million. That's $3.8 million above the policy minimum of $8 million. So we're back in the black on our fund, which is fantastic. We have seen claim costs continue to increase, but they've slowed. During the first 7 months of 2025, medical, which includes prescription and vision, we've seen an increase of 9.6%. The model assumes about a 9% increase. We've actually seen a small decrease in our dental, which is a very small portion of our overall fund. That decreased by 0.6%. So we're seeing the model is we're averaging about a 9% increase, which is more in line with national averages. So that's pretty good. So on September 23rd, County Employee Benefits Advisory Committee voted 13-0 in support of the following recommendations. We didn't propose anything new. We didn't want to add to the plan. The only recommendations that we took into consideration and recommended to EBAC were legislative required updates. And then, of course, there's always some language changes. So if it pleases the board, I'll just go through them quickly. The first one was Oregon statute now requires that we add doula services under medical services. So under maternity services, doulas are now covered as a medical provider. For that, we anticipate a very small estimate of about $7,500 cost to our plan for that, adding that. We also, state legislation requires that we expand prosthetic devices that are covered under durable medical equipment. We now need to provide coverage for prosthetic devices that help with daily activities and essential work tasks. We already covered prosthetic devices, but this just expands that coverage. And it also expands it to cover prosthetics for physical activity to improve your health, which I think is a good thing. We estimate the cost to that to be about $13,000 for the next plan year. The third state legislative requirement is to cover autologous breast reconstruction, which is fantastic. We have a very robust provider network that already cover those services. They were already covered under our plan. This legislation states that they need to be covered as in-network. We already have a significant number of providers in network that already perform this service, so we don't anticipate any cost to our plan for making that update to our plan. Another big change, we usually don't include flexible spending account increases. Every year, the health FSA automatically increases a little bit each year. The dependent care FSA, which is exactly what it sounds like, where people can have money withheld from their paycheck for dependent care, has been $5,000 since these accounts were started. Under the One Big Beautiful Bill, they increased that permanently to $7,500, which is, I think employees are more happy about this change than anything, so that they can have those dollars withheld pre-tax to cover dependent care costs. Again, there's no cost impact to the plan. These are funded by the employees and a minimal administrative cost. As always, we have updated plan language that comes from Pacific Source, our TPA. They recommend just clarification on our plan documents to help employees and their dependents interpret our plan documents better. There's also sometimes definition changes and things like that, but these happen every year. We work with legal to review and make sure there's no change to our benefits. It's just basically punctuation, language changes, things like that to clean up our plan documents.
But do we know that Pacific Source is going to be there for us?
Yes.
I mean,
I
they,
think so.
or hope or yes.
So
There's a difference.
I'm going to take the conservative route and say hope. They are currently negotiating, as I'm sure you're aware, with St. Charles. Our employees received a big communication saying that St. Charles was not going to be in network for the 2026 plan year. Those negotiations are continuing. I will say that Pacific Source is one, if not the largest insurance provider here in Central Oregon. So I think it would be behoove both parties to come to an agreement to include St. Charles as in network. But those discussions are still ongoing, and we have not received notification that they have come to an agreement.
Okay, because I have a doctor that's gone concierge, one of our major family doctors, and the other doctor left St. Charles, and I haven't heard if he's actually going to join anyone else. So there seems to be a lot of flux in our community.
Correct.
Yes.
The EBAC committee also supports increasing the employee cost share by 1%. This would increase the monthly rates for an individual from $95 to $96. And then for employee and dependents, the other tier from $116 to $117. That would bring us an estimated revenue to our plan of $17,000 annually. Now, there's some additional recommendations that we are encouraging the board to approve. Renewal of Pacific Source as our TPA for the 2026 plan year. As a side note, we are planning on going out for an RFP next year for the 2027 plan year for our TPA. We are at the end of our contract, so we would like to continue with them for this year, and then we will be going out for RFP. Last year, there was an 8.1% increase to their services administrative fees. This year, it's a more reasonable 3.3%. We'd also like to renew our life and disability insurance with New York Life. There is no rate increases this year. There was a small rate decrease last year, and those rates are locked till January 1st of 2028. Our employee assistance program through Canopy, there was a significant increase last year of 23.4% after several years of no increase. And this year they are not proposing, there will not be a rate increase for our employee assistance program. Flexible spending accounts, those are administered currently by Pacific Source administrators. There is no fee increase. We just learned this week that Pacific Source Administrators is selling that piece of the business to PNC Bank. So we're working through that, and we also just learned that there will be a slight decrease in the administrative fees for those flexible spending accounts. So another good thing there. Stop loss, as in years past, stop loss providers like to see claims through September before they make a final bid. Pacific Source has currently has a locked bid, and it's currently the most favorable 7% increase while maintaining the $500,000 deductible. But that did come with a 50% rate cap. So in future years, they could increase the rates up to 50%. Other bidders are waiting for September claims. We've learned that they are reviewing those now and now have final bids. So as in years past, we recommend that that the board approve whichever is the most financially responsible bid. Once those final bids come in, we'll select the most financially cost-effective bid, and that's the one that we'll present to the county administrator for signature. But we plan on maintaining the $500,000 stop loss deductible. That seems to be our sweet spot and works really well for us. Is there any questions I can answer for you?
Thank you very much. Quite a complete package here today, and we do this annually. Any thoughts or suggestions?
Well, I was talking to an employee yesterday who had actually been in the private sector, and I believe her family's health insurance that she was paying was $2,100 a month. And so when she came to work here, she heard from a lot of employees that were really upset when we raised the employee share. They were furious. And yet in the outside world, people are paying so much more for their health insurance. And to see that that the EBAC board voted to raise it $1, like, oh gosh. Did they have zero? Was that possible? Could they vote for zero raise? Because I heard they were not happy with, what did we raise it from 90 to 121, 126?
So we had several proposals, and I think that we presented the recommendations, the initial recommendations to the commissioners. We had offered several different options. Those were discussed, I believe, in one-on-ones with the commissioners. And then there was also an additional one that was brought forward by one of the commissioners, which was a $5 premium. So those were the ones that we submitted to EBAC as for them to vote on, and they voted on the 1%. So that's the one we moved forward with.
And the vote was unanimous, I bet.
No, it was not.
Okay. What was the vote then out of the 16?
Well, on that vote, it was done at a separate meeting. There were 6 that voted for the 1%, 4 that voted for a 5% increase, and then 1 that voted for just a $10 across the board increase.
Okay, so that's only 11 people.
Yeah, so that was done at a previous meeting. And there wasn't as many members attending.
So going down that path, I mean, yeah, this is our partnership, Employee Benefits Advisory Committee. But yeah, let's be partners here. I mean, 1%, $1, it's almost insubstantial. Get into a little bit more of a number here because those 15 and 15 internal fees were huge numbers. This is a very valuable program. We all know it. But being a partner would probably mean biting down hard and maybe coming up with a $5 bill instead of $1. So I mean, if we as a board right now are, leaning into something different than that recommendation, what would the procedure be? Sending it back or?
No, so EBAC is an advisory board.
Yeah.
They recommend to the Board of County Commissioners, but obviously it's your decision. We just present the information that we have presented to EBAC and ask for their support. So on this particular item, there was a separate vote ahead of time so that when we presented them with the complete package in September, we had a recommendation, and then that's what they supported
The package. Yep, got it. Yeah. As I say, I mean, this is the partnership. This is our organization, the covered lives, the employees plus the family. So, I mean, we want to keep this a very positive environment, and it is a very beneficial plan. So, I don't know, any thoughts on those lines?
Yeah, I don't think, I think 1% or $1 is largely symbolic. But to go to 5 is, I mean, if 1% or $1 only gets us $17,000 then going to 5 is still only going to be what, $90,000. So I mean, it's not, yeah. I mean, we're not talking about numbers that are large enough to actually make a real difference in the overall financial picture for our health plan. And I do think we need to be very concerned about the costs that we ask the departments to cover, which do add up a lot and which are contributing to our challenges with supporting employees, with having over 1,000 employees at the county. So but to do I guess I'm just saying 1%, 5%, $5 or $1, $5, it's still largely symbolic. It's not really helping our finances that much. So I mean, I would support either, I could support either one of those. That's fine. But I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that that's actually solving any problems.
Well, it's just being partners in moving this forward. I mean, cost of healthcare is
Well,
big overhead.
that's why we need the app that Robert Tyndall told me about yesterday. An amazing app. People need to be using this app when they're buying food in the market. It clearly tells you if you should make that purchase or not. You scan it. Bobby, is it called Bobby?
No.
Anyway, what an amazing, thank you so much for sharing that. People have got to make better choices. When I go to the market, people need to have nutrition training. There are aisles you shouldn't even go down because so many things in them would never pass the app that I was so excited to learn about yesterday.
Taught to do the perimeter.
Right, that's what you do. I know, it's just, I didn't want him to look at my Skippy peanut butter. I do love that, and I'm sure it's really unhealthy, but everything else, I try to be really careful, So
yeah, we have a couple of recommended motions here, discussion about that one, just that one item, as I say. I mean, this is a partnership. It's a great program, great plan. The partnership with the advisory committee is strong, so I'm not even upset about anything here, but it just might be more prudent to, instead of doing $1, to do a little bit more than that.
And
so I do kind of lean into that.
The $5 is what you're talking about, not 5%, but just the $5.
Or, I mean, maybe it's easier to keep it at a percentage because there's multiple fee levels there.
But my question is Black Butte Ranch also in our health plan now?
They are.
But they don't have a vote?
They are invited guests. They only have two members.
Okay, but I did remember that they did join us.
They are invited to the EVAC meetings. They have yet to attend, but.
Okay, I'll remind them. Thank you.
COIC.
You're welcome to provide input.
Well, COC has a vote.
Correct.
Yeah. I
How
see
many
what you're
people
saying.
from COIC are on our plan?
We have about 120 employees, plus their dependents, and I don't have a count on the dependents.
And dependents? Okay. Well, it is really, it's a lovely plan and we are actually so fortunate that we have this amazing plan set up a long time ago by, our county. And I'm really relieved that our health benefit fund is up to that 11.8 million, because when it got down to 1 million,
Yeah, drop
and we had 18 million in that fund, and we just sucked through that money like you can't believe.
So
So
is a
I want to keep it
percentage
safe.
or a dollar number?
So it's up to the board. If you did 5%, that would be an estimate of $86,000 in revenue. If you just did a flat, which is very similar to that, if you did a flat $5 premium increase, we're looking at about $77,000 in revenue. We always round those to the nearest dollar anyway. So if we did a 5% increase, we're looking at $99 total for employee only, and then $121 for employee independence. If you did the flat dollar amount of $5, you're looking at an even $100 for employee only. And then again, it looks like, excuse me, it would have been 122 for the 5%. And then for the flat $5 increase for employee independence, it's 121.
So with that discussion, is there motions? And as I say, I will support the $5 bill there, just knowing that, everything's 3% and 5% and big money changes out there. Let's be invested in our program is my
I know.
thought.
Well, I think the problem is we went for so long of a period of time where we didn't raise it at all. I mean, wasn't it like 10 years or something? We didn't.
I've got the chart right here. Back in
He was ready for this whole.
I know.
2014, we went from 65 to 90. And then we were at $90 and we only had one tier. It didn't matter if it was you and a spouse, and 10 kids, it was $90 up until 2024. And that's when we started having the discussions with increasing. And that's when we split into two tiers, with the top tier, which is the most common, employee independence, going to 116.
Yeah.
And 95 for employee only. And that's where we've sat now for the last couple of years.
So it would go into effect then the 1st of January of 26.
Coincide with this, all ties to our open enrollment, and we need to have a decision so that we have those, because that could affect employees' decisions during open enrollment.
Trigby, do you have any history on what happened in 2014? I mean, that's a pretty substantial jump. That's like almost a 50% increase.
I don't, Commissioner Chang. I'd have to go back historical data on that, why there was a change at that time. I know that at that time there was some financial challenges at the county where there was some, and maybe Nick has some, where there were some furloughs and some different things that went on at that time as far as staffing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was the reason for the increase. I could get that information for you, but I don't have it right now.
Commissioner DeBonne, can you remember?
No, I mean, we always have a good justification about what we're doing, but I'm not coming to specifics right now.
Okay.
Like I said, $1, 1%, $5, 5%. I'm fine with that. I don't want us to think that actually contributes a lot to the financial solvency of our health benefits program, because, $86,000 is just not, I mean, that we could almost make the argument that we should just pass on doing an increase this year. And then when we can come up with a good argument, pursue something more significant. Because right at the moment, the health benefits fund is in a good place. We have put these substantial increases on the departments for their share of the employees' health insurance costs. I mean, I would be more interested in us coming up with a more significant increase that would help us actually reduce the burden on departments than to just kind of do a symbolic $1, $5 now. But if that's what my fellow commissioners want to pursue, that's fine. I'll support that.
And the rest of the package, I support all the items you had mentioned. So I think we can just work through our motions here now.
Okay.
Figure out if we all support it.
So let's see. To change that, which item would be applicable if we did the $5?
So that would be recommended motion 3.
Okay.
And that's item 6.
Yeah, and that would be item 6. So you could move to approve the staff recommendations with the change to item 6.
Okay, so I will move to approve a contract, including the deductible limits for the 2026 plan year with a stop-loss provider who best represents financial options for the county.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes.
I can do the second motion. Move to approve renewing with Pacific Source, the current third-party administrator, TPA, for the 2026 plan year.
And I will second that with the word hope. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, so acknowledging that it's been moved and seconded, any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Item number 3. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Move to approve the staff recommended employee benefit plan changes 1 through 6, amending 6 to say $5, not 1%.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yes, and I just want to say that, yes, going from 65 to 90 was incredibly significant. So hopefully this is a smaller change.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. 4.
Approve county administrator signature of the final Deschutes County Employee Benefits Health Plan documents and service agreements for the 2026 plan year.
And I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Thank you very much. Thanks for the discussion. As I say, thanks for the EBAC for being involved with this. I mean, it's no hard feelings here. It's just that number was the common ground for us today.
And this is just a small piece of
Yeah.
what EBAC does.
Oh, yeah.
They help us plan our wellness initiatives for the year. They, it's not just, this is a big chunk of it is during the renewal period, but getting the input from the employees and the different departments is invaluable to us on planning for things that happen throughout the year. So.
Well, and we're the public health authority, and population health is very important, and employee health is very important. And we do have our doc here. So, I mean, please go in for regular checks and physicals, and breast exam too for cancer awareness right now today. So as I say, let's all work together on this.
And we, Connie just retired after 30 years, but she was the walker, you'd see her out all the time. So we need everyone to be like Connie and to do more walking. So, and more nutrition that we can encourage for all 1,200 people. I mean, honestly, I don't think people understand what they're putting in their body and the fact that, as you said, you go on the outside aisles of a market. And that's really where you should do most of your purchasing. Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So how about we take a little break today before
Oh, sure.
the next item?
Oh, why not?
Couple hours. So we'll be back for item number 15 here in just 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, great. I love it.
Okay, we are back. Item number 15, deliberations, a plan amendment and zone change for 240 acres located east of Bend.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Audrey Stewart, Associate Planner with the Planning Division. The item before you is deliberations regarding a request for a comprehensive plan amendment and zone change. The proposal would change the zoning of the property from exclusive farm use to multiple use agricultural. Your packet includes the location map, and the subject property includes 4 tax lots located east of Bend. They're located to the east of Ward Road, to the north and south of Highway 20. And they have a combined area of 240 acres. There was an initial hearing before a hearings officer on May 9th, and the hearings officer recommendation was mailed on July 9th. The board held a public hearing back on August 20th, and the written record was left open following that hearing. The written record has since closed, and this is now ready for the board to conduct deliberations and vote on this application. Leading up to the hearings officer hearing, I received 7 comments in opposition. General themes were impacts to surrounding properties, impacts to wildlife, increased traffic, and compliance with statewide planning goals. During the board hearing, Central Oregon Land Watch and the applicant both provided testimony and additional written materials. The Deschutes County Road Department also submitted an email, and this was in response to a question the commissioner raised during that hearing. Your packet includes a decision matrix, and I flagged areas where the applicant and Land Watch submitted additional arguments after the hearings officer recommendation was mailed, because we'll want the board's decision to address those new arguments and materials. Unless there are any questions or discussions from the commissioners, I'll move into the decision matrix, which is included in your packet.
Any other thoughts or questions getting us going here? Yeah, thank you very much for the decision matrix and prepping us for the topic.
Thank you, Commissioner. And please let me know if you want more or less detail as we go through this. The first issue area is regarding the soils report that the applicant provided. The question is whether this is a soils assessment as defined by OAR 660-033-0030. And why this is relevant is that if this is considered a soils assessment, there's a process that they have to go through. They have to be submitted to DLCD. They do essentially a completeness review. And for most of the applications that the board processes, the applicant will do a site-specific soil study. In this case, they relied on the mapping that was provided by NCRS and then kind of provided some additional information.
And RCS.
Correct. Thank you, Commissioner.
I know, well, I was reading it going, okay.
And RCS. And then they provided some additional information on how to interpret those soil maps. The hearings officer agreed with the applicant and said, no, this is not a soils assessment that had to go through DLCD because you're taking this available data. You're not, going out to the property and providing a new map. So the first board decision is, does the applicant's soil report constitute a soils assessment as described in OAR 660-033-003-05A? If no, the board can continue reviewing this. And if yes, the board must deny this request because they didn't follow these procedures.
So we've got quite a history with soil analysis, and this is kind of the first time we're seeing just the soil report with the existing information. Any thoughts on decision?
I'm comfortable with applicants for comp plan amendments and rezones using NRCS, the direct NRCS soil data, or doing their own more in-depth soil study. So I don't have concerns about this.
So that would be, no, we can continue.
I support that also.
And to confirm, are all 3 commissioners are voting no, the board can continue reviewing?
No.
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Yes, we're voting no.
I'll move on to issue area number 2, which is closely related. This is also regarding the soils report. And the question for this one is not, does it reach the conclusion that the subject property is predominantly Class 7 and Class 8 soils? And why this is important is that that means they're not considered agricultural land. So the applicant provided a methodology that used a weighted average to conclude what percent of the property was Class 6, Class 7, and Class 8 soils. This was prepared by a professional soil classifier. The oppositional comments argued that they were argued against this methodology and also said they were providing information that wasn't clearly shown in these NRCS maps. The hearings officer agreed with the applicant. They found that it was credible and persuasive evidence, and they agreed with the conclusion that the subject property is predominantly Class 7 and Class 8 soils. The decision point for the board here is, does the applicant's soil report demonstrate the property is predominantly made up of Class 7 and Class 8 soils and therefore not agricultural land? If yes, the board can continue reviewing this, and if no, the board must deny this.
I'm comfortable with the way that the hearings officer evaluated this question. More broadly, I do think that we need to recognize in these processes that soils can be amended. So whatever kind of classification, and a soil assessment or NRCS data gives us, we need to be aware that soils can be improved for agricultural use, but to this specific question, I'm comfortable with the way that the hearings officer evaluated the question.
So I'd say yes, the board can continue.
I would conclude yes also with the professional soil scientist.
Thank you, Commissioners. Moving on, issue area 3 is regarding the definition of agricultural land. This one goes slightly beyond just the soil study. So this is looking at whether the property is agricultural land by considering the following factors: soil fertility, suitability for grazing, climatic conditions, water rights, existing land patterns, technological and energy inputs, and accepted farming practices. And essentially, both sides submitted arguments trying to demonstrate how the property is or is not suitable for farm use, whether there's any history of agriculture, and whether there are farm uses that are cost prohibitive on this property. So the hearings officer agreed with the applicant's analysis and said that the property does not meet the definition of agricultural land. One thing I wanted to flag here is this is an issue area where additional arguments were submitted after the hearings officer decision was mailed. So this is an area where the board's decision might provide some additional arguments or clarification. So the issue or the decision point for the board here is, does the subject property constitute agricultural land with respect to the factors under OAR 660, 033, 00201AB, which are those factors I just listed. If no, the board can continue reviewing the applications. If yes, the board must deny this request.
So this one, I kind of go down the path that Commissioner Chang, you were just mentioning, an MUA 10, a smaller parcel, augmenting a smaller area of soil could be either profitable or at least lifestyle, value farming. But, the livestock grazing and, commercial agriculture isn't, doesn't have a history here, I guess.
Audrey, could you remind me so the assertions that this land was previously irrigated, I mean, what did the hearing reveal about that?
Let me look at the hearings officer recommendation for that one. I believe, I want to make sure I'm correct. I believe Landwatch was relying on some historical aerial photos of the property.
Historical.
Which then makes me wonder what happened to the water rights if it was historically irrigated. But yeah, I mean, I think if there has been past agricultural use, you know, it's a reasonable thing to ask whether this is, you know, potentially suitable for agricultural land or not. So, you know, that's a that would make me lean towards yes on this question, but you know, more broadly, I want to flag something that, you know, is we are working with laws as they exist right now, but I have a lot of concerns about lands being used for solar farms and conversion of those lands. So, you know, in this case, I believe we heard that the solar panel array has been up for, you know, maybe 10 or 12 years, but is not nearly served its full functional life, you know, mechanically speaking. And you know, once you've made an investment like that, once it's contributing electricity to the grid, which we desperately need right now, it seems like it should be valued and preserved, you know, at least until the end of the functional life of that equipment. And so for the state land use planning system to say that solar farms are an allowable conditional use on EFU zoned lands, but not to recognize them as agricultural use, I think is kind of problematic, because then a solar farm that's on EFU land does not get the protection of other allowable uses of EFU zoned land. So again, we're I think we have to work within the existing statute as it is currently written and the existing rules as they're currently written. But at this point, there's probably hundreds of thousands of acres of solar farm on exclusive farm use owned lands across Eastern Oregon. And I think we need to start to recognize those as a you know, as a first priority use of EFU zoned lands. And we need to provide protections for that use. So so for at least that tax lot of this property, those I have concerns about this kind of classification as agricultural land or not agricultural land from that perspective as well. And I mean, maybe that's something that we can talk. I can have some discussions with CDD about after this hearing, after this application process is over as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Going back to your original question, I was just taking a look at the hearings officer decision, that question about irrigation. There were photographs submitted from about 1968 that they said showed pocket farming on portions of the property. The applicant responded and saying that basically Landwatch didn't provide sufficient evidence describing, you know, what that farm use was if it did exist. It looks like Central Oregon Irrigation District didn't submit comments regarding this one, and the property currently doesn't have water rights. So the applicant said, you know, within the last 56 years, there's no evidence of farm use on the property, and the hearings officer agreed with that. And there is, it sounds like your question about the solar farm is a little nuanced, kind of considering it as farmland. I did want to point out later in here, there is an issue area specific to that existing solar farm. Thank you.
We can raise that then.
So with the question of constitute agricultural land, I would say no for this application.
And I would agree with that.
And Commissioner Chang, could I clarify your vote for this issue area? Does the subject property constitute agricultural land?
Yes, I'll go with no, but I would also say that the burden of proof is, well, we're not that far from the burden of proof that would be necessary for me to vote yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next issue area, this is related to Goal 5. So the quarter-mile buffer from Highway 20 is within the landscape management combining zone. This is identified as a scenic corridor. It's a protected Goal 5 resource. There were questions regarding compliance with Goal 5. The applicant kind of took what I would call a belt and suspenders approach. So they, in the initial material, said that this wasn't applicable, that the county's landscape management combining zone is sufficient to basically ensure that any future development doesn't degrade this scenic resource. There were some oppositional comments saying that no, Goal 5 is applicable here. So the applicant submitted their own EASY analysis, and this stands for an economic, social, environmental, and energy analysis. And what they showed through this is that basically any impacts that the new zoning, so the issue was around whether the new zoning would allow conflicting uses. And they showed that any new conflicting uses could be mitigated by just applying the county's landscape management combining zone. So the hearings officer agreed with their analysis. One thing I wanted to point out here, there is a recent LUBA decision. And based on this, our kind of current interpretation is that that LM combining zone is probably not sufficient to address this. So the recommendation is that in the board's findings, you do specifically call out that EASY analysis. And so under the board decision column, that would be 1A.
So I was able to track it down and I printed it out for today and, just looking at the categories, single dwellings, agricultural uses, propagation or harvesting of forest products, road projects, home occupations, private parks, non-commercial stables, horse events, commercial activities in conjunction with farm use, dude ranch or guest house, kennel or veterinary clinic, destination resort or golf course. So yeah, they were able to kind of look at each one of these and kind of make a statement in each one. So this puts me in the spot of this is the applicant's EC to the applicant material. And when you say, we should acknowledge it, do we say we agree with all these statements or that this is sufficient backup justifying that there isn't a direct conflict with future LM?
That's a great question, Commissioner. So I guess the summary of this EASY is they said these are all new, potentially conflicting uses. They're important and the scenic resource is important. So they said both are important. The way to balance that is through applying the landscape management combining zone versus taking a really strong approach that either the scenic resource or the new uses were far outweighed the other. They said both are important. So if the board decision, referenced and adopted this EASY, it would simply say that Goal 5 is applicable, but their EASY analysis is sufficient to address it.
By implementing LM zone for the named analysis, all the attributes of this analysis, all the different uses.
That LM combining zone is already in place. And so the decision point for the board here is, does the MUA zone introduce new conflicting uses to the Highway 20 scenic corridor? If yes, does the applicant's EASY analysis adequately address Goal 5? If yes, you can keep reviewing this. If no, you must deny this application. Or there's the alternate approach, you could say no, an easy analysis is not required.
But you're recommending that it is required because the landscape it does not go far enough.
Just it's staff's kind of opinion that it wouldn't be necessarily legally defensible to say, no, we don't have to apply goal 5, that it's safer to say, we do apply goal 5,
Yes.
but it will be met.
Okay.
No, I guess I would say yes and yes.
Yes, 1 and then A, yes.
And I support that also. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know how much of a speed bump that was going to be to really acknowledging that, but. Well, and just acknowledging, and easy, it talks about, destination resorts or destination resort golf course or hydroelectric facility. Some of that stuff is just it's just not going to happen there. Exactly. But they did analyze each one of the things that could happen in that zone.
Exactly. The 5th issue area is regarding compliance with our rezoning standards. And so this comes from our local code. It's section 18136.020 of Deschutes County Code. The question is, does the proposed change in zoning best serve the public interest? And so I want to point out some kind of specific language in our rezoning standards. It says the applicant for quasi-judicial rezoning must establish that the public interest is best served by rezoning the property. Factors to be demonstrated by the applicant are, and then it lists 4 factors. Essentially, the argument here comes down to how to interpret this language. So Landwatch is arguing that you look at these individual of each other, that you show that the public interest is best served, and then you also show that you meet these 4 criteria. The applicant and the hearings officer both said, no, you have to look at this as a whole. And that, the reason that this methodology is provided is because that's how you show that the public interest is best served. So this was one I wanted to flag for the board, that this is regarding local code provision as opposed to other standards that come pretty directly from state law. This is also applicable to other zone change requests. So this is a good one for the board decision to provide some guidance and clarification on. The hearings officer, as I said, they said that you can show the public interest is best served by demonstrating compliance with these, and he found that they did meet their burden of proof. Some additional arguments were submitted after the hearings officer recommendation was mailed, and the board decision would address those. The decision point for the board here is, has the applicant demonstrated that the public interest is best served by the proposed rezoning in compliance with DCC 18136.020? If yes, you can continue reviewing this, and if no, you must deny it.
Audrey, could you actually just read out for us what those 4 components of public interest are in the code?
I can. It's a little bit long, so bear with me. The A is that the change conforms with the comprehensive plan and that the change is consistent with the plan's introductory statement and goals. B, that the change in classification for the subject property is consistent with the purpose and intent of the proposed zone classification. C, that changing the zoning will presently serve the public health, safety, and welfare, considering the following factors: the availability and efficiency of providing necessary public services and facilities, and the impacts on surrounding land use will be consistent with the specific goals and policies contained within the comprehensive plan. And then the 4th, D, that there has been a change in circumstances since the property was last rezoned, or a mistake was made in the zoning of the property in question.
Thank you.
And so we historically have looked at these 4 factors as showing that you meet this section. First, the counter argument that was submitted here is that it's essentially you have to look at them separately of each other. Is there
Yeah.
any other discussion or a vote from the board?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of input on whether we look at those four things separately or together, but I did want to home in on public health, safety, and welfare. I I would argue that there are a number of values connected to open space that we need to consider when we're talking about public benefit. I also, kind of speaking directly to public services, power generation is actually a really important public service right now. I mean, we have rapidly escalating electricity demands, and we have insufficient generation and transmission to meet that. So I do have, again, concerns about taking, a functioning solar array offline before the end of the functional life of that equipment. And then, the biggest thing, I mean, and it's not specifically called out when you use the phrase public services, but the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is housing, because we are talking about an area that is very close to the urban growth boundary of the city of Bend. Not so close that I think this will, absolutely positively be considered for inclusion in the next urban growth boundary expansion if and when that happens, and if and when this is, or if this is rezoned. But we really need to think about the housing needs of our community, and the idea that we could rezone this land to a state where those 240 acres could support, 24 MUA 10 residences, when at some point in the future, when the city of Bend grows to that point, it could instead be included in an urban growth boundary and support 2,000 homes. 2,000 versus 24 is in my opinion, a much better, a much better use of those lands. I think we really need to consider how this property could arrive in those two different places. If we, in some ways, I'm concerned that this rezone application is premature for at least, 3 of the 4 tax lots that are included, because the stuff that's farther out, the stuff that has an active solar array on it right now, I don't think that is. I don't think those are close enough that they are immediate candidates for urban growth boundary expansion. So if by rezoning this land, we make it available for development at MUA 10 density, and it actually builds out that way, and then that development actually inhibits urbanization at the point where where the city is ready to absorb those lands, that is not a service to public health, safety, and welfare, in my opinion. So I would feel much more comfortable about proceeding with something like this if we had an urban area reserve in place for the city of Bend, which we don't have yet, or if we had our urbanization overlay that the community development department is going to be working on, but has not completed yet, in place, prior to considering this rezone application. So I have serious concerns about whether this rezone application at this moment in time best serves the public interest.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner. And I don't want to speak too much on behalf of the applicant, but one thing they kind of stressed during this public hearing process was that these solar facilities have kind of a natural timeline, and that the intent isn't, for example, to rip it out after a rezone, but to kind of tee the property up so that once that life cycle ends, that it's ready as MUA 10 zoning. And they also stressed wanting to go through this zone change and have it done early on so that it's land that the city could consider versus having to kind of rush it or chase it down afterwards.
Audrey, can you tell us when their solar life is it projected to be over?
And thank you, Commissioner. No, this isn't binding. The estimate they gave, I think, was about 20 years is the time frame of these. It can be longer, but they said about 20 years.
Okay.
And we are, I want to say 5 to 10 years into the life cycle of this solar farm.
So perhaps there's another 10 years.
Mhm. And one thing they pointed out in their application materials is that even under this new zoning, there is a path for it to continue to operate as what would be considered a non-conforming use.
Right. Right. Yeah. And we'll get to that. But yeah, again, kind of looking at the foreseeable future, there is a lot of MUA 10 zoned land closer to the current urban growth boundary than 3 of these 4 tax lots. And it's hard for me to imagine the city of Bend, with this next urban growth boundary expansion that's doing right now, jumping all the way out to the easternmost tax lots in this application, and so at least for a couple of the tax lots that are included here, I think that this application is premature.
So it was only 0.26 mile from the line, the closest corner of the property, I believe.
So right now the property is, there's only one sort of intervening property between the subject property and then a fairly recent urban growth boundary expansion. So that Parkside Place development is, I can give you that exact measurement.
This is the map that we got back in August. If you don't have it handy, you could take a look at the.
So it looks like about 0.26 miles.
Isn't that what I said? Yes.
knew.
I remember that. Yes. Am I-
To the first tax lot. And I think that one would be a reasonable one to consider, but there are 4 tax lots in this application totaling 240 acres, and some of it I don't understand why there's urgency to consider at this moment.
So I would conclude supporting the hearings officer decision on this. And he, clarifies, going from the term best to best served. And the hearings officer decision has a couple paragraphs about the public services and the kind of the scenario that he was able to come up with there. So I support that.
And I do also. Yes.
Are you saying no specifically?
I'm saying no.
Okay.
Thank you, commissioners. This next issue area is also regarding the existing solar facility. So this kind of ties in with what Commissioner Chang was just discussing. So the existing photovoltaic solar facility was approved as a conditional use under the current EFU zoning. They're proposing to change the zoning to MUA 10, and it's not a listed use under that new MUA 10 zoning. So there is a specific criteria for rezones that the change in classification for the subject property is consistent with the purpose and intent of the proposed zone classification. So here the arguments were regarding whether it's consistent with the purpose and intent of the new zone if you're creating what would become a non-conforming use. So the applicant pointed to our code and state law, which allow a non-conforming use to continue. The opposition, so Landwatch in this case, said that, even if it can continue as a non-conforming use, that is not consistent with the intent of the MUA 10 zone. So the hearings officer in this case agreed with the applicant. And then I also want to note, this is not a status determination on the existing solar facility. So really, we're just looking at this zone change. The board decision point is the proposed zone change consistent with the purpose and intent of the proposed MUA 10 zoning? If yes, the board can continue reviewing this. And if no, you must deny it.
Thank you for your clarifying remark about the solar. And I'd say yes. We can continue.
So I support proceeding with that existing non-conforming use. But the question is the proposed zone change consistent with the purpose of MUA 10? I mean, I don't know that that's the mindset I have on that. You know, it's there. I think it's appropriate to be able to ask for this rezone, which is the process we're in now. But yeah, I mean, would you put do we have a path for solar on MUA 10 at all? We don't.
That's an excellent question. So I guess going back to how it could be consistent, the applicant really pointed to the purpose statement of the MUA 10 zoning and says it allows for, these low density uses. It's really a transition from more high density uses to kind of like rural agricultural uses. And so they showed how this property was a good fit, a really good candidate for that type of transition. Regarding the solar farm, so a non-conforming use can continue to operate if they wanted to alter it. So if they wanted to expand it, that would come in as an alteration of a non-conforming use. But again, that's assuming that this is verified as a lawful non-conforming use after this zone change.
Yeah, so I just say the wording there, I support it as a verified existing non-conforming use. As I say, I don't know that we would see this from another MUA 10, historically MUA 10 property.
It's very unique.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't necessarily see it as the solar farm as consistent with the purpose and intent of MUA 10 zoning, because it's non-allowable use. I completely understand the unique circumstances that the solar farm is already there and that it can be kind of grandfathered in as a non-conforming use. That's fine, but what MUA 10 is supposed to be used for, I would feel much more comfortable with this, reviewing this application in 5 years when that solar farm is at the end of its functional life, rather than right now in the middle. So
I'd say 20 years. 5 years would be cutting it short, I think. If it's been in use for 5 or 10, you think of a 25-year window. So
I thought,
I'm just thinking
somewhere in my notes, I think I wrote down that it's been in operation close to 10 years. So I would say it's about the halfway mark now.
Yeah. And
but yeah, I mean, I don't think we're anywhere near the end of its functional life at this point. So,
but as I say, I would conclude with the hearings officer decision and proceed.
Okay. You can mark me down as a no.
And just for reference, it looks like it was approved in 2015 with a modification a year later in 2016, at least when they received
10 years.
their
Okay,
land use
yeah.
approval for that facility.
But then maybe took a couple years for construction.
Correct. I see some electrical permits for it from 2016.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it's not as complicated as building a house, probably.
I'd said yes on that. And did you get everybody's feedback on that?
I heard one vote for yes for this one, one vote for no, and then I have not heard a third vote, if I'm tracking correctly.
Oh, I thought I already said yes. I did say yes, maybe softly.
Issue area number 7 is our final issue area. And this one is asking, will this result in urban uses such that an exception to goal 14 is required? And goal 14 is our statewide planning goal regarding urbanization. And this is essentially, there were arguments saying that this zone change would allow urban uses in a rural area. The hearings officer agreed with the applicant. They found that goal 14 was not applicable. They said that no urban uses are proposed, and they found that a goal exception is not required. And essentially, they were pointing to our adopted comprehensive plan and the allowed uses in the MUA 10 zone. The issue area for the board here is, would the proposed zone change allow for urban uses on the subject property? If no, the board can continue reviewing the applications. And if yes, the board must deny this application for failure to comply.
So this is here because the assertion of opposition comment. Because yeah, we've been down this path before, and I think it's been bouncing around in LUBA, but it always, at some point, it'll be a settled discussion, I guess.
Yeah, it is really difficult to say what an orderly and efficient transition from rural to urban is in this spot. And this is extremely close to the city of Bend. I do think that at some point in the future, these lands, all of these lands within this application should be considered for urbanization, and that would be the highest and best use of the land is urban development rather than being built out at MUA 10 densities and blocking urbanization and blocking us again from getting 2,000 homes instead of 24 homes. There are, you get a little farther out, or depending on the time horizon you're looking at, and you can imagine that it makes sense to have, urbanized lands, some MUA 10 small agricultural properties or small properties used for other rural uses before you get out to the real farmland. Where that's supposed to be, is the big question. And we live in a very rapidly growing community. But if what we're doing with this application is allowing development at MUA 10 densities, I don't think that is providing for an orderly and efficient transition from rural to urban at this, in this space that is so close to the city of Bend. And until, again, we have that urban area reserve, or until we have an overlay, for the county that preserves land for future urbanization that are extremely close to the urban growth boundary, I cannot say that this rezone application is going to provide for the orderly and efficient transition from rural to urban.
Audrey, on this one, the first one, number one, don't you want to say if yes, the board can continue reviewing? You have two no's there. 1 and 2 both have a no.
The second should be no.
And the first one is yes.
Yeah. So if yes, so if this is allowing urban uses, then the board has to deny this.
Okay.
If it's not allowing urban uses, then the board can approve it.
Okay.
For that clarification.
And this intersects also with with the idea of cluster developments. In this proximity to the city of Bend, I think that cluster developments are a good idea, right? You could, if you have rights to 24 units, if this is MUA 10 zoned, and you develop a corner of this property with 24 units at higher densities and preserve the rest for future urbanization, I think that's the appropriate way to work with a property like this in such close proximity to the city of Bend. But is a cluster development an urban use? Kind of. So yeah, I don't think we can answer this question yes.
I support the hearings officer conclusion here. Goal 14 is not applicable. MUE 10 is 10-acre parcels. The scenarios you're referring to, Commissioner Chang, I agree with all those. A cluster development or an urban area reserve or a holding zone, that's follow-on work. In fact, this might even trigger some of that. So as I say, I support proceeding by saying, no, it's not urbanization. Got to watch out for the yes and the no there.
Okay.
I would say we should have done that work earlier.
Well, I do find it fascinating that Bear Creek Road, right across the street, it's all yellow. So, it seems like we're trying to help expand Bend that way instead of going to the west.
So that's the end of the matrix there.
Yes, and I did want to note, in response to Commissioner Chang's comments, that there is an ongoing project, it sounds like you're aware of, to look at some sort of limitations placed on rezoned properties to kind of better preserve them and speed them up for future urban uses. Thanks for this.
And I know we also need to dig in, and these are all like policy deliberation, the policy discussions that need to happen outside of this application decision. But I know we also need to grapple with the whole cluster issue as well.
Thank you, Commissioners.
So is there a motion for the will of the board here? And it is provided in the memo.
Language that I provided in your memo. One thing I wanted to note, because we did kind of add on some clarifications. This is, I would call, approval plus of the hearings officer recommendation. So my suggested language would be that motion that's in your packet, and then clarify with the modifications to the hearings officer recommendation that were discussed at today's deliberations, just so it's clear for the record.
Ooh. Okay, so I can make the motion. The board moves to approve the plan amendment and zone changes for files number 247-24-000097-PA, 247-24-000098-ZC, and 247-25-000021-MA with additional clarifications
Exactly, provided at today's deliberation.
provided at our deliberations today.
Well, seconded. Okay, understood. Good discussion today. Any other thoughts or discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just reiterate. I think that this application is premature for all of the tax lots except for the one that is closest to the city of Bend's urban growth boundary.
But I have some confidence that, the applicant had, I think they stated during their public hearing that their intention and their will is to be a good partner for that future expansion and not be impeding. So it just the intention of what was stated seems appropriate. And calling for the vote, Commissioner Adair, Commissioner Chang.
No.
And Chair will vote yes. Thank you very much. So then we'll have following final decision documents.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll return with a draft decision for board consideration.
Great. Thank you. That was item 15. We do have multiple executive sessions today, but is there any other items at this time? Any?
I'll share a few things.
Other items?
We'll share a few things. We did have a managed camp, Redmond managed camp meeting on Thursday last week. I didn't get any indications from Councilor Zwicker or Mayor Fitch at that time that there would be any problems with the vote for increasing the allocated funds for the Taylor Northwest contract. But there was a lot of discussion at that meeting about the actual operation of the camp, the rules that would need to be in place. There was a huge amount of discussion about the fence and whether it would be gated and, you know, whether there would be a gate closure, how that would be operated, how that kind of could work in tandem with whatever staffing there was for the management of the site, and potentially how that could help us reduce, save money on operations, because if we're paying for security patrols, then that's going to eat up many, many, many tens of thousands of dollars per year to operate that as part of our operations. So I'm relieved that we are finally getting to the discussion of the operation. What organization is going to come forward to manage the facility, and these discussions of trade-offs between the infrastructure and equipment and personnel. So that happened on Thursday. Attended a grand opening for a ribbon cutting for Habitat for Humanity project, a Bend Redmond Habitat for Humanity project out at Daly Estates in Southeast Bend last week, which was wonderful. And yes, Commissioner Adair and I were at the Little Kits event. That wasn't a ribbon cutting. I don't know what you would call it, but yesterday, and it was great to see something that was proposed to us 4 years ago that we allocated funds to hit the ground, and it was a remarkable facility, and I'm excited to go back there sometime when there's a lot of kids running around in there and see it in active operation.
Great. I was able to attend the Center River Pine Economic Development meeting yesterday, talking about increased activity, a couple of buildings being put up, some land use. Our road department's out there working on the drainage for the runoff water or whatever. Stormwater. There you go. Thank you. So they're out there working. Also, AOC meetings. I know that all of us were kind of in and out of some of the AOC meetings on Friday and Monday. So I attended a couple of them, and the legislative meeting on Monday afternoon also. I think Commissioner Adair, you're at the table on some of that for us voting. So
Yes.
yeah, good survey what the big topics are these days. That's all I have.
Okay, so I would love for Holly to come back next week, if it's possible, to discuss the document regarding all the counties protesting OHA at the same time with the underlined red letter that we were talking about yesterday, Nick. So if Holly could come back so that we all can be aware of what needs to be done. And then Monday night was the Fair Association meeting. That was a good meeting. The board seems to be getting ready for next year. And then we had a hour-and-a-half meeting yesterday for our investment advisory committee. And everyone was being incredibly cautious considering financial numbers, situations, et cetera. So that was a quorumly. I believe we only have 2 meetings a year on that. So we'll have another one next spring.
Okay, anything else?
We have a letter for your consideration regarding the Alfalfa Fire District application for an ambulance service license. And the original is at the bottom, and there's a copy on top for you to consider for your approval today.
We had approved the ASA changes so they could provide this service.
Right. And I had forgotten about this topic, so thank you for bringing this.
And then this is the one.
Oh, that's what this is for. For the
Here's a
ambulance.
copy of the letter to look
Yes.
at before we pass it.
Yes.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So this is in support of them.
The license.
And
Thank you.
Yes, Tom felt like this letter would adequately serve the need.
So this is a letter to the Oregon Health Authority Public Health Division Emergency Medical Services Program as an advocate for them to be able to be licensed to provide that service.
I'm curious about this word exclusively, transport exclusively within its fire districts. I mean, does that mean that Alfalfa Fire won't respond to medical transport needs outside of its district? Does that mean that Bend Fire and Rescue, if for some reason there's a ton of activity inside the Alfalfa Fire District, isn't allowed to come in and do medical transports? You like how can somebody kind of explain to me what exclusively means here?
I'm not familiar. Having not, I just received this. You probably gave it to me a couple of days ago, but my schedule's been packed. I don't know if any others are more familiar with it. I'm not at this time. And Brenda, if you are, great. I'm.
I did.
Given everyone who's involved, given how thoroughly they've reviewed this, I'm pretty sure that this is okay. But like, I just, before I sign this, I'd like to know what they mean when they say exclusively.
Well, I'll support a letter, and I'm also supportive of getting clarity on that too. So to proceed today, we might want to acknowledge the letter for support, and then pending slight edit, possible edit, or something like that. Because I see what you're saying. Does that mean they only stay in their district, or they dispatched in and out, or
right? Or I mean,
yeah. And does it matter? I mean, is it substantive to the intention of the letter?
Okay. Yeah,
There might be a slight edit.
I'm comfortable signing today, and but I would like clarification what they mean by exclusively.
So
that version of the letter then?
This is the one.
Yeah.
Is that the good one?
That's the
Yeah,
original.
color
correct.
one.
Color one.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so is there a motion support for that letter?
Yes, I move we support the letter for the Alfalfa Fire District application for the ambulance service license.
Second, and again, request clarification on what exclusively means later.
Any other discussion? Being none, Commissioner Dare.
Yep.
Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes. Okay. Anything else? Other items, Nick?
No, thank you.
Okay, so at this time, executive session, I think we have two.
Okay. The Deschutes County Board of Commissioners will now convene an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660. They will be convening as the governing body of the 911 Service District to discuss labor negotiations as outlined in ORS 192.6602D, and also as the governing body of Deschutes County to discuss real property negotiations as authorized under ORS 192.6602E. Designated staff and the media are allowed to remain during the executive session. However, the media may only report that the board met in executive session and the identified basis for meeting in the executive session. Recording devices are not permitted. No final decisions will be made, and at the conclusion, we will open the doors and invite the audience back to the meeting.
Okay, so at this time, we're out of executive session. Is there anything else for this meeting? We have a joint meeting with the judges this afternoon in a couple hours, and the district mapping advisory committee is going to be in here in 20 minutes. So with that, meeting adjourned.